All right, y'all. Welcome to All Politics Local, America's number one
Number
political hip hop
one.
radio talk show. Hey,
And
listen,
it don't
y'all.
stop.
If y'all don't hear the music in the beginning, that's because we having some early technical difficulty. Of course, the DJ is trying to work that out. But listen, y'all know we're constantly fighting the power. So you know that's real talk on our end. But listen, welcome to All Politics Local, America's number one
Number
political hip hop
one.
talk show. Y'all know that if it is the second Friday, y'all know it is the vote, which is hosted by, I should say, co-hosted by, of course, our beloved brother, Chief of Staff for our beloved brother, the Mayor of the City of Newark, Mayor Raz J. Baraka, his brother, Amiri Midi Baraka, and Reverend Conrad Tillett, and our beloved sister Tamika D. Mallory. So y'all know that it's the second Friday, and of course it's them. She's not feeling well today, and of course y'all know the Middy's in a 5:30 meeting. So when he's out, he'll join us, and then of course you know Conrad. At some point will pop through as well, but until that point, of course, myself and of course the staff of APAL that's here, of course, Brother Zaid Muhammad, of course,
Sir.
our beloved sister Donna Williams, and then of course the illustrious none other than himself, our brother Jonathan Big A Austin. Will come through. So, and then of course we're gonna have something going on at 7 o'clock. We've got a round table that we're gonna get into with a couple of college professors, PhD brothers, and John will of course announce who those folks are going to be in that 7 o'clock hour. Then at 8 o'clock we're gonna talk a little bit about the census. What are our numbers? Where are we? Of course, you all know that it ends early this year at the end of October. So we're going to get into a conversation, with our brother, and
Greg Stanley.
we'll talk a little bit with him, Craig Stanley. By the way, he used to be a former assemblyman. So
Greg
we're
did
going
some good work too.
Yeah, so we're gonna talk with him, and we're gonna try and have a conversation about, why do we need to be counted, and what does that mean to our community. So in the first hour, we're gonna try to hold it up for the brothers and sisters with the vote. There's a lot going on politically. You all know that there's 50 days left, or less than 50 days left now before the election, November 3rd. And so there's a number of things that's going on. I mean, while we're busy talking about everything going on in the country, the Senate, brothers, i.e., is still stacking the deck with conservative judges. Are you paying attention to that, my brother?
Dangerous. It's
Exactly.
dangerous.
That's right.
It's very
So
dangerous.
yeah, so we need to understand what that really means, right? When they're stacking the deck, they're putting on young white conservatives who are in their either late 30s, right, or either early 40s, which means, i.e., that
They're
they're
gonna
going
be
to
there a
be
while.
right. So they're going to be there for the next 30 or 40 years, right? And so even after these folks are dead and gone, right, the ideals that these folks are putting forward are still going to be moving through. You see what's happening?
We're at a serious crossroads for the future well-being of what semblance of democracy we have at this republic with this looming election, and that's one of the most critical factors that you just identified. That's all the more reason why folks cannot afford to sit this one out in terms of the ballot. I know folks are not excited about who the top folks are on that top line, but it's important to be engaged, fully engaged from your most local space, in terms of your local politics, right on up to these top dogs in Washington D.C. I say as we waiting on waiting on Rhino to get in there. I got Dump Trump all up in my head by my young brother Hakeem Green. Right, we need to be blasting that and hardcore people's hip hop like that between now
Right.
and November, because that sector may be the very wild card that determines where we're going to stand and what we're going to be up against
Right.
as we approach the crossroads of these next several years, right? Right? I mean, these folks are not playing when they're trying to roll the dice of fascism. Trump is not by himself.
Right.
There's a whole, the right wing, the most reactionary, backward segment of the so-called 1% is fully mobilized. They're locked in. They're in lockstep behind this monster, and they're ready to do as much retrograde damage as they possibly can. They did not stop, and they will not stop. That's because the ballot is all up in this, going to be in this discussion today. They will not stop with what they did at the high court. Right in 2012 with Shelby versus Alabama, where they gutted the enforcement dimensions of the Voting Rights Act. Now we just lost John Lewis, but we must push forward the strength and reclaim the strengths of what needs to be reclaimed in a Voting Rights Act. And I would dare say we need to really try and energize this electoral space over the next several years to lay the groundwork to make automatic voting registration and voting rights a constitutional amendment. That's how you secure something like that.
Right.
Make it permanent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make it permanent. So we're at the crossroads. This is a dangerous time. This is no time to sit this one out. Trump must go. McConnell is up for re-election.
Oh, absolutely. That's definitely
right. Kentucky is a backward state that only got a little bit of chocolate. But whoever claims to be non-racist amongst those who are not chocolate need to unite with the progressive chocolate, and McConnell needs to go.
Absolutely.
We can't be wishy-washy about none of that. Folks got to turn out. This needs to be this particular historical moment requires a GOTV drive, a get out the vote drive, like we haven't seen since little brother got in 2008, and the stakes were not as bad when he got in. The stakes were, we were in a recession, but we're in a depression.
Right.
You got over 40 million people out of work, and ain't nobody even willing to use the language.
Right.
It's terrible. Euphemisms ain't gonna get us out of this. Euphemisms ain't paying rent. Euphemisms are not getting people that are homeless and hungry off the street. Euphemisms are not checking the spread of this decadent disease that almost took a few of us out of here and took a whole lot of folks out of here that we know.
Right.
They can't sugarcoat this no more, and we can't be sugarcoating about the urgency of this particular historical moment for the benefit of us, those who are responsible in this historical moment, and those coming behind us.
But here's the thing, though, Zaid. That there are a lot of brothers and sisters that are with with us in the struggle. That they don't intend to vote at all. You know that, right?
Yes, yeah, and it's I say it's a grave mistake.
Yeah, and I'm talking about people that's close to me and you, right?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right. So we
love it, so we can talk about it like a dog.
And so we have a conversation with him, and I was telling John, this recently, because the mayor was saying, he get all of that, what folks are saying, but he said that the analogy that he used, he said, so if your mother send you to the store and she says, get me a box of Raisin Bran cereal, but now you go to get those cereal, Brother Zaid, and they don't have Kellogg's, but they have Post Raisin Bran. Now your mother didn't say which Raisin Bran to get. She said get Raisin Bran. So you go to the store, Zaid, and because you can't get the Raisin Bran you wanted, not the Raisin Bran your mother wanted, you come back with nothing, right? And so the analogy that he used, the way he's using the analogy is that we may not get all that we want from Biden and Harris, right? But the truth is that we have a better chance of pushing them to the side that we want to push them to than we do trying to push a racist and a bigoted to the side of giving black folk justice. Yeah, and black folks who are on the outside looking at that and saying, no, I can't do that. I'm not going to vote for them no matter what. So realistically, a vote that's not for to remove Trump from office, then a vote that's not for Harris and Biden is a vote for Trump.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. That's the danger. Amiri is all in my head. We must
He's in mine too.
the advance of the right wing.
I was watching a video of him the other night.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when he was
Brown gets himself straight, he ought to play Somebody Blew Up America. Today is September 11th.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But we must halt the advance of the right wing. And if there's no other reason but the one that you describe, that is reason enough. Right. And I know some folks within, there's a divide within my Panther family, serious one,
Right.
I mean, 69 Panthers, made a call for a united front against fascism. That did not necessarily mean, voting for the Democratic Party even then, right? However, as the next several years progressed, you saw a move from our ranks there into more local politics.
Right.
One of the things that actually excited me as a kid up under, following the Panthers was when Chairman Bobby ran for mayor of Oakland, right? 1972, right? Scared that town to death. They had a Republican mayor, right? Oakland had that very, renegade character like it has always had, and the party rolled the dice. Everybody got called in from the field in all their cities to come to Oakland to try and get Chairman Bobby, and Chairman Bobby got to a runoff and almost pulled that off. Right. And it would have been incredible. It would have brought a whole new dimension to the history of and the motion of the Black Panther Party had he pulled that off. Unfortunately, he didn't. And what we lost in terms of momentum locally and throughout the country actually was indirectly led to the demise of the party from that internal pressure, just the spreading of our forces. But it was important. Right. It was groundbreaking. It raised eyes in a very singular way, and it was important to do. And we came close, right? And you're not going to always win, but you don't give up until you do. Right. Because in the end, Myriad also taught us this: we're not just fighting for justice; we're fighting for power.
That's right.
So that's right. Fighting for power,
and that's the conversation that me and the mayor have all the time, right? It is a struggle for power.
Yeah, right? I miss his father dearly. He's doing his state of the city on his father's birthday.
Yeah. I posted that on our Facebook page, man. I
missed Mary deeply. Yeah.
So, but that's the point, right? When Amiri was alive, one of the things that he had said was that he was talking about. You see John posting something up about
that. Yes.
About this meeting that that Ice Cube was pushing for with Biden, and so they had that meeting, but they also had another meeting. They had they didn't call it. They called it, I think it was called a listening party or something. Okay. That D.L. Hughley had along with Killer Mike, Jeezy, and Snoop Dogg. And they had this conversation with I think it was with Kamala Harris. And so they were talking about the contract with America that the Ice Cube has out there. Mm-hmm. The problem with that is that from my standpoint, right? The problem is that you now are meeting with entertainers, right, to have a conversation about the masses of Black people socially in America, right? You're not meeting with the activists. You're not meeting with entertainers, and that's exactly what was happening back in the days. If you think about it, right?
It's a problem. It's a serious problem, and it is a manifestation of one of the fruits or objectives of COINTELPRO. Right, COINTELPRO had no problems with eliminating, the progressive sector of black leadership, right? To only have a modest controlled wing of Black leadership and Black entertainers, right? Be put out front to represent our people. Now, I thankfully, These are decent brothers.
Yeah. I mean,
They're not Negroes.
yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Yeah,
and they're talking about something with some substance, you
yeah.
know. But your point is serious. It's a
Yeah,
very,
don't get me
very
wrong, Zaid. I mean, when you talk about D.L. Hughley, that's a smart brother, right?
Sure is. Sure
He's
is.
very smart. He's very politically conscious, right? But my thing is that if you ask me for a meeting or I ask you for a meeting and you grant it, I immediately would say, well, I gotta call some of those brothers and sisters who are on the street, right?
I mean, if
In the struggle,
yeah,
I gotta
yeah.
call them into this meeting because you're calling me because I've got visibility, and what you're trying to do is exploit my celebrity. Well, I don't want you to do that, right? I understand my celebrity got you to come to the table and invite me to a meeting, but I want my celebrity to be used for me to get these activists to that table, right?
Right.
Which is the same way you see LeBron doing it, right?
Right.
And and that's what you want to be able to do, right?
Right.
Be able to do that because for the most part, the people who are fighting every day don't have celebrity.
Listen, let's appreciate something from a media standpoint, right? One of the things that's been happening in cable TV land is the great elder Harold Belafonte was spotlighted for his role in bringing activists, well, not bringing activists, but bringing athletes and artists into the civil rights movement and using his celebrity status to advance critical issues in the civil rights movement. And what they were particularly spotlighting is the epic year that was 1968, right? And he took over the Johnny Carson show for a week. And that was one of the most loaded weeks in television. Television didn't look like what it looks like today with 1,000 channels and a whole lot of shows, old and new movies, all of that stuff that we have today. We had 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, and a little bit of 13 and 41 and 47, right? But basically those handful of channels and a whole lot of white, leave it to beaver kind of TV.
Right.
You understand?
Right.
But Harold Belafonte seized that moment, understood where he was strategically, and brought in both the progressive artists and all the other leading organizers and activists on that show and forced that dialogue on the question of race and social justice during those 5 critical minutes in 1968. So there are always these dynamics. We see the setup, right? So we got to get the most advanced players that are caught up in the setup, so it doesn't turn into a clown show, which is how they try and set it up in the first place. So I respect and appreciate Ice and little brother Hughley and Killer Mike for having the conversation and for having some and not going in on it with an empty slate.
Right.
Not going in looking for getting their picture taken, going in with a contract with Black America. That's a step in the right direction. So I appreciate that. So we get that needs to be turned up. But at the same time, those of the conversation should be with Black Lives Matter is language that is reverberating all over the world right now, right? Why is it that we do not have our young people who are in Black Lives Matter or Movement for Black Lives, who just had a national convention on August 28th, got our people in the streets all over the country, right? Why are they not at the table? Why is not some of our more critical, ongoing voices, at the table? And that's so we still got doors to kick in.
Right.
52 years later, we still got doors to kick in.
Right. See, so I think that, imagine if you had, people like LeBron and DL and all of these brothers were to say, listen, it's great that you want to meet with us, right? But here's what we want to do. We want to be able to call on all of the activists that are around the country, these Black Lives Matter movement folk, and what we want to do is have y'all speak directly to them, right? And we are supporting them. See that? That's what Jamie Foxx did, right?
That's what Harry did.
Right. When Jamie Foxx got involved with what happened with Brother Floyd, right? He got behind the family, right? He didn't let them put him out front, right? He said, "No, I'm behind the family. I'm here to support the family," right? And that's exactly where he remained, right?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't allow them to be able to pull him in front of the cameras and be able to exploit him. He allowed them Black Lives Matter movement folk out there, right, and allowed them to go in front and put their voices out there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what we've got to be smart enough to do that. I mean, one of the things I've always said, Brother Zaid, is that when Trump was meeting with black folk when he first got elected, remember when he was meeting with Steve Harvey
Yes.
and all those Jim Brown and all of those,
Yes.
and you see who he's calling to meet with, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
in his mind, who he see the leaders are entertainers, right?
Right.
You don't see the leaders as Reverend Jackson. He don't see the leaders as Minister Farrakhan, right? He don't see those folks as the leaders. And what he doesn't realize is that the consciousness that some of these folks have, where the hell does he think they get their consciousness from?
For real.
Right? I mean, you may not have wanted to meet with Amiri, but where do you think we get our consciousness from? Right?
Right.
I mean, yeah, you want to meet with us because we can say a poem and it sounds fantastic. But who do you think we copied from? Who do you think we learned from? Right? And so you don't want to speak to my teacher, but you want to speak to me as the student because you think you can manipulate me.
It ain't going down like that.
Right? And so the consciousness, right, full-throated consciousness is still with those folks that are alive. Think about it. Harold Belafonte is still alive.
In this 90s, hanging in there.
Right. So I'm saying, Zaid, we still got generals,
that's right,
who are available to advise. And so if you want to meet with us, then you ought to be willing to meet with us and our advisors, right?
Meet with who we want, who our community says you should meet with.
Right. Don't call
self-determination is not being handpicked by the other side. Self-determination is the people choosing their leaders and their voices for themselves.
Right.
And we need to understand that and not let anybody manipulate us like that. Absolutely.
Right. Because here's the thing, Zaid. Right now, we listen. In my mind, Zaid, I believe, man, that we are on. I believe that we are in the final lap of where black folk are going. We either going to survive or we're not going to survive because white people right now are fighting for their survival, right? This is the whole reason why they're supporting the hell out of Trump the way that they are. Listen, do you really think that any black person could have committed all of the atrocities against America and if they were, if Trump was not white, do you think that an Obama would have lasted this long?
Not even close.
Not even close, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trump is not a patriot at all. But if any of that that Obama would have done, I mean, they would immediately said that this man was an enemy of the state. And everybody
locked him up.
Would have just out in front of the wall.
Locked him up.
Right. And you've got to ask yourself, why is that? Right? It's no other reason, Zaid, than racism and bigotry. And Donald Trump is showing us, right? As we look at this guy, what he's showing us is he's saying, look, this is what whiteness is and white supremacy is in America. I can do all of this and nothing's going to happen to me.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
I can break all the laws, right? It doesn't even apply to me. No matter how much you talk about him, right? Nobody's doing nothing. Sorry, do you remember when Obama was running, and do you remember that statement that was made by Reverend Wright? And remember when they put that in a loop when they said that he called America when he made a statement about in the church, and he made this statement about Hillary Clinton.
Yeah,
and they put that on the loop, and on every channel that was in a loop, man. Fox had it going 24/7. It was so bad it was so bad that Obama had to come and give a special speech, right? And he literally had to say that I'm no longer a member of that man's church. Me and my wife have nothing to do with this brother, right? And Reverend Wright, I mean, what he was saying was he was totally taken out of context.
Yes. Yes.
Right. And so, but you don't see a loop of, they're talking about it, but at the end of the day, where's the loop of all of the lies, right? And all of the crimes that this man has committed? Where's that at? Why isn't that playing in a loop?
It boggles my mind.
Right.
I mean, there was, I think it was the Washington Post that it was actually, they started the fact checking and the number of the sheer volume of lies this man has told, and there's been no, and with those lies come policy misdirection. With those lies come people not being, the medical industry not giving the resources it needs to test people and to treat people for a pandemic that, for all of its danger, with the proper resources, is treatable.
Right.
Right. Other countries, and many of them much smaller and far less wealthy, are managing this thing in ways that we're not, because of the stuff that he does that's wrong, racist, rotten, and he's been getting away with. And so it's, man, we can't stress enough just how important it is to get this guy up out of here.
Right.
Because the consequences of a win will mean an acceleration of more of what we're talking about, right? And that will push us back. That will push us back to places that we probably would not, that those younger than us certainly would not want to endure, because it is not a part of their history, or any of their experience, and they don't understand that, right? It's really important, So and that's the side effect that I hope does happen, with this particular arrangement. The fact that this dialogue is taking place with that sector of our community, I hope it brings more from that sector out.
Right.
Right. I hope it activates those who would not consider voting, or just be like, we just partying and we get ready for whatever's next, next week,
Right.
Take a step up and look at, wow, hip hop is talking to, the next president.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
What does that mean for us? What does that mean for me? Maybe I should vote. So,
I mean,
I don't want to poo-poo it too much.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? Like I said, I'm glad that it's not, house Negroes,
right.
that Biden and Kamala Harris are talking to. These young brothers got some politics, but, as I say to our kids that are in the streets, stay in the streets. Stay in the streets. We're at the crossroads because of what's happening in these streets.
Oh,
right?
Without a doubt.
Those hands are out, extended to us, even if they're extended half-heartedly, because our kids are in the street. So it's important that we stand in the street. I think somebody we know just slipped on in here that we got to make sure his mic is on so he can turn it on. Come on, Jonathan, what's going on?
All right, no, just part of the conversation, and I saw the contract with Black American that both Trump and Biden reached out. I think that's ironically is really important because he has a lot of following. People have been following the contract with Black America. Now, is he an actual leader, organizer? Probably not. Maybe not, right? But he is bringing a lot of people into the political sphere that might have stayed out. So I do know that, like with him and with these celebrity endorsements, they are at least conscious people who have a reputation for trying to be conscious. And it really is it's the difference between people who are like young people who are saying, I'm alienated, I'm not going to go to the polls, I'm not going to vote, I really hate Harris, I hate Biden, I'm not going to be down with them, I'm not supporting it, to, hey, they were down with something that I claim to be down with, as in something that seemed to be thoughtful, something that was a like reparation, something that would make you think the contracts, but that there's something going forward, and a full-throated endorsement. And it sounds crazy, right? But it's 2020. So I think a full-throated endorsement from Ice Cube may be the difference between Biden carrying certain states and not carrying certain states.
Did that happen?
It's key.
Did that happen?
Key.
John,
Yes.
did that happen? Did Ice Cube come out and endorse Biden?
No, they didn't do that yet, but he has
No.
to court them. I mean, the entire process, and I think it was an educational process, right? Because the entire process is what I thought was Ice Cube saying, you're voting for these people, but they've done nothing for you. You're voting for these people,
Absolutely.
but you haven't gotten anything from them. So why are you voting for these people when you haven't necessarily gotten anything from them in return? So I think that what he's saying is, I'm going to be real loud, and I'm saying until they actually talk to somebody, until they actually say that they're going to endorse something that actually helps Black people publicly, right? Then we're not going to do it. Because I do think that the Biden administration, they have talked to a lot of activists, right? Like I put up the story by the Washington Post that says Kamala Harris actively wooed people from Black Lives Matter and other people who were formerly critical of her before she got the vice presidential nod. So I think that a lot of things that they've done were behind closed. I'm sure that I'm willing to bet lots and lots of money that the head of the NAACP, the head of the Urban League, Congressional Black Caucus, like all these organizations that the AKAs, right? Like all these groups and organizations that will get voters out. Have had conversations at a high level in the Biden administration, right? Like I'm very confident that stuff has already happened, but most of that stuff happens behind closed doors. So when people are like, well, what are they going to do? What are they going to do for me? How are they addressing needs of Black community? That's a really good question because you have no idea if like the head of the Congressional Black Caucus cut a side deal, right? Like they're like, oh, my kids and my family can have jobs and we'll give you all these endorsements. You have no idea because the thing is not made public.
Right.
Are you getting feedback? Are you getting feedback from me?
A little bit, just a little bit at the end.
All right. Try to adjust.
You were rolling.
No, but I'm just saying that, like, so when he's talking about the contract with Black America and Ice Cube, it's like, hey, reach out. I think one of the things that starts to actually demonstrate is that, well, you got to ask. You have to make demands.
Right. And
you have to make politicians come to you for those demands. Ice Cube has a large following. He's got a lot of people on Instagram. He's got a lot of people following the contract with Black America. I'm sure they looked at the numbers, and they also looked at the demographic they're weak with. Like, because of Kamala Harris and because of Biden and because of their history in terms of mass incarceration, they are not doing as well with young people in terms of being excited. They're not doing as well with Black males. Hillary Clinton only got 80. Well, I say only. It's a lot, right? She got 80% of the Black male support. But in order to win overwhelmingly, you need Obama level numbers and 80%, although a landslide in a dictator's election, right? Like dictators have an election, they get 80% of the vote. That's big.
Right.
But because we're so split, but because we're so split, you need more than 80% of the Black male vote. And it looked like, based on the reputation of Kamala as a cop, in terms of the prosecutor, a lot of the stuff in her record, you have Joe Biden, and you have a lot of the stuff that goes about 1994. And a lot of the stuff he said in the 70s gets put out there, turns people off, doesn't make them excited. So I think that this push is a good push. They got to be persuasive. They've got to persuade. They got to excite.
And they can't be empty-handed in their persuasion. They got to come with something.
Right. The persuasion is something that's concrete, or at least the promise of something concrete that they're going to have to, they're going to have to actually bring, put up on at some point, right? If they made these promises during the election, if they go back on them, they know there's a higher hell to pay because they raised expectations.
That's right.
That means that they're going to. People are going to be real pissed, big pissed, and which is great on both ends because you have a lot more motivation for activism, which is what you need. Because ultimately, anybody who's in power needs to be pushed. It's just a matter of who would you rather push.
Who was more likely to be responsive to your push?
Right, absolutely. I talked to my uncle a few days ago. And he's very practical. He was involved in politics and working on people's campaigns most of his life. Worked from the civil rights movement all the way to a few years ago. Would always work these different campaigns in New York, etc. And he was like, "No, of course, Kamala Harris. Why? Because she has the AKAs. And what do? They vote, and they turn out, and they do the work. And he's like, a lot of young people talk, but are they guaranteed to come out and vote? No. So why do I need to prioritize somebody who's not guaranteed? There are always people who talk. There are always people who are like, hey, I like this, I like that, but you will not be taken seriously until those votes are counted,
right.
until you have a reputation for bringing everything out.
out.
Because other than that, it's a waste of time. It's a waste of air. Like, oh, we don't support Kamala because she's a cop. Okay, well, you probably wouldn't have voted anyway, is what he was saying. And that makes sense. If you're talking about, hey, we got 20 weeks. We don't really have time to.
They're going to move fast.
We need to know who we going to get coming out now, because the difference is turnout. There's some talking about building that long-term stuff. That seems like that's a project that you do long-term.
Yeah.
Right. But if a lot, and I think that is part of the disconnect between like young people who are upset and organized and doing a lot of really great things like within the street, and the older generation, because I think in the Black community there's a generation gap. I've been saying this for weeks. But I think the older generation, like the Congressional Black Caucus, the AKAs, the people who have their kids in Jack and Jill, right? Like the people who are Black, middle class, have stuff to lose, have also organized and organized in substantial ways that are effective electorally, so that they can count the number of people that they have to the polls, which they demonstrated when the Congressional Black Caucus pretty much single-handedly handed Joe Biden the nomination. Like, we don't really talk about how that happened. And a lot of people have conspiracy theories and nah, man, like it really is.
They made a play in South Carolina.
Right.
And turned the whole show around.
They made a play in South Carolina and in every district on Super Tuesday that followed.
That's right.
Because he won where there were Black people, Biden won big.
That's right. What's my elder's name? Brother Clyburn, pull one out of the hat for them.
Right. Because they pulled it. They didn't just pull it out of the hat for him. They created the hat and gave it to him. Like he didn't have nothing. Like Biden had nothing before that, right?
Right. He was almost out of the race.
So John, let's go back to this conversation we were having where we were saying pay them kids.
I know you're talking. I know where you're going.
So here we are now, and it's not 20 weeks, John. It's more like 6 weeks, right? Because it's only 50 days or less than 50 days before the election, November 3rd. So these kids now, John, who are all still saying, I'm not going to vote. I don't care, what they say. I'm not voting. I'm not even voting in the down ballot. I'm just not going to vote at all. So what do we say to them now, John?
Nothing. You say absolutely nothing to them now because it's too late, right? Like at a certain point, right? Like if you're like right now, there's no way I'm voting. Either one of two things. You say nothing, and you like the Democratic Party made a play. They said they're going after white people who voted for Obama and Trump. They're going for Republicans who who detest Trump. They're going for the white woman who went to Trump last time. I mean, that was the DNC. That's what they made. That's what they did. They're going all in on that. The only thing they got going for them right now, and when they realize they're weak in certain these states, is to do stuff like contract with Black America to get these celebrity endorsements, get Ice Cube to help out, put GOTV money in Black communities, right?
Yes.
But like lots and lots and lots of you got to
like they have not done.
So I would change it from like the pay them kids they needed to do that immediately. They needed to change their policies and programs and excite these kids and get them out. With so little time left before the election, people are starting to vote now. They really can't they really don't have the ability to message in a substantial way. Ice Cube might, right? That's where they're doing it. Ice Cube might be able to message and get people excited for a last minute push.
Right.
Because he's a celebrity, because he has millions of followers, that kind of thing, right? Snoop Dogg might be able to do that. But that's desperate. That's desperate, right? You are in the
I never thought we would be in a day and time when we talking about Snoop Dogg mobilizing folks at a critical moment in our history, to get our folks out to vote. That's,
right. But I mean,
here we are.
Right, exactly. And so in terms of paying them kids, I think that was the correct policy. I think that's what they should have done. I think they should have done that before the convention or during the convention.
Yes.
I think the convention should have really galvanized the progressive wing, but they made a choice, right? That the people that they needed to get were the white women and white men in the middle. And they might be right. I don't know, right? At this point, I'm like, Trump has a cult following of white people that will always vote for him no matter what. And it sounds like a cult because it doesn't matter what he does.
Hell, that's right. They're gonna do it.
Like, he knew about the virus and he sent
no reasoning with that base.
Right. Like what was revealed in the Washington Post was that, you know, he knew about the dangers of the virus, yet he had all of his white people who love him.
Bob Woodward is still taking down presidents. I hope somebody reads the damn book.
You don't have to read the book. Just read the interviews. Read the headlines. Listen
oh my God.
Right, just listen to the tape.
Well, I remember Woodward coming out and blowing the whistle on Nixon's administration. I'm old enough to remember that. So that's how long he's been around, and that's how he's been getting down. So
yeah, but this one was easy.
Right on time for those on the fence that can be reasoned with a little bit. Let me say,
right.
I actually have I'm of a different mind, and I think you're right on point, Jonathan. Right, but if and then of course this is why I'm not at the I don't have the wheels of any of those cars, right? But I would dare say the Democratic Party, instead of catering to the right, which is what basically the Democratic Party identity has been with the emergence of Bill Clinton. That's what Bill Clinton did. He came into the Democratic Party with an organized machine to take the Democratic Party to the right, to get white men back in the Democratic Party that were formerly in the Republican Party and playing, you know, talking a liberal game, you know, playing the saxophone with Negroes, while at the same time building prisons like he ain't never built them before because jobs are being shipped out of the country. If I would dare say, and I think Obama made the same mistake too, within the first 2 years of his administration. When we look at people like AOC, and we look at people like my little sister up in Boston, I'm having a brain freeze now, right? But we look at, you know, young people coming into the party from the left. This little sister from St. Louis, straight out of the streets, survived COVID, homelessness, became an organizer, took down a veteran black family man in the Clay family and took his seat in Congress, right? They represent and should be seen as the future of the party, right? And I would dare say that had they took Malcolm said a turtle can't go forward unless he sticks his neck out. Had they stuck their neck out and said, look, the country looks more like them than it does these crazy white folks. We need to organize from the left and start talking about some things in a bold way that the country needs. You know, the Green New Deal is not rocket science. The Green New Deal might save the damn planet and put a whole lot of people to work. You know, I mean, an urban Marshall Plan, right? To put people in these cities back to work and shore up our infrastructure, which includes and should include affordable housing, right? It's not rocket science. It's something we need, right? Medicaid or Medicare for all. It's not rocket science. We're in a pandemic. People are hurting. People are dying, and a lot of them ain't got nothing to rely on but a prayer and self quarantines and something that is taking people the hell out of here, right? I mean, it's not rocket science, and that's where the energy and the future of the party is coming from. And I'm not a Democrat. I'm a Panther-bred socialist, right? But just some, you know, politics matter. You know, having vision matters. You know, so you know, and
when you're talking about
strategy, you know, we hope that they'll and see what they're praying on, and this is the heart of the right wing. That strategy is that they get enough white folks from the right, from Republican ranks, right, and they're looking at a more, you know, moderate type that they're pulling. You know, that might be the difference. Time will tell.
I think that when you are on point, but I think that here's the thing. I think the difference is, right? I think on issues, everybody knows the young people are right. Like at least most of America thinks the young people are right. I think that when it comes to like right now, they're talking about how California looks like Mars. It's all orange.
And their wildfire season has not even started yet.
Right.
That's the next 2 months.
And they're saying that this is unprecedented. It's never happened before. And they're saying this with so much about the environment. Like, we know, we see it, right? I think all of that's true. Here's what I think, and this I think goes back to my other conversation and my evolving thinking on this. I think that what I believe what the young people in Congress who are energetic are trying to do. I think what AOC and Ayanna Pressley and those people are trying to do is what the older people have already done. Form institutions that bring people to the polls institutionally. Form a progressive machine.
Right.
Like at the point that, because all of it, I mean, it's really just about how many bodies can you bring to the polls? Bodies to the polls is even more important than money.
In the end.
Right, because money is important, but bodies to the polls is more important. We've all seen, like, even in Newark, we've seen where some people got outspent and some people brought bodies to the polls. Bodies
That's how we did it.
Right? And especially on local levels, like progressives can, and part of how you get Congress is how you get that local machine at a progressive level. I mean, on a local level to bring out those votes consistently.
That's right. It can't what you're doing. It's got to be grassroots driven.
Right, but people talk about that, and they talk that talk. But so when people are talking about, oh, there's a machine and the local machines, and I know I'm going to sound crazy for saying this, but local machines are grassroots. You just disagree with what those grassroots are, right? Like there are local people who've organized with other.
Jonathan might have just blew up the mic.
Right, they're local people who organize with other local people according to an agenda, and they get stuff done. They're like, we can guarantee we're going to get 5,000 people to the polls each time. They're going to come out for this, right? And it might be
here, and here. Yeah.
But here's the thing, though, right? What is not happening right now is that you don't feel the excitement, right, in our community about the election, right? I don't know about you all, but if you are not politically astute or politically aware, you're not really paying attention right now, right? And you don't feel the energy particularly amongst young people and non-voters in our community. When Obama was running for election, remember, there was a certain level of excitement. You don't even see Obama and Michelle out there like they should be. Why aren't they in the community?
That's a mouthful. Now you just blew up the mic.
Right? So, and I'm saying that they know they should be out there right now, right? Because even all of the people who may have issues with Biden and may have issues with Kamala, I'm saying in the Black community, John and Zaid, where is Michelle Obama? And remember, she got more credibility in the Black community than Obama does.
Where she does. Our queens love that little sister.
Right. So where's she at?
And I would dare say, whatever we got out of Obama, we got out of him because of her.
Right. And so if you want to get young people excited, you want to have Michelle telling that story, right? Okay. And if there's anything, and John, here's the thing, right? And if there's anybody who can convince young people, right, to go out there and support this ticket, it is her.
No, Ed, no, not at all. Michelle, well, here's the thing: Michelle Obama is the same as Barack Obama. They're both older. They have an older demographic. That the Democrats have the Michelle Obama demographic, right? Like the Michelle Obama demographic generally likes Kamala Harris.
I totally disagree with you. I
don't know anybody. I don't know that the young people who are activists would just look at that as Michelle Obama is a great personality. She's a wonderful figure. We love her. But people who are not
will get Black women out across our spectrum.
Right. Black women are already been targeted. I mean, like that demographic is in through Kamala, through through Michelle already, through all of the, like, black women are targeted by the Democratic Party, which is a good thing, right? I think that's different from the young demographic, young women and men. I think that's issue driven. That's not symbolism driven. That's not identity driven.
Oh, John, I'm also saying it's issue driven. Yes. However, John, I'm saying that there are people out there who would not trust Kamala, black men, young black folks who would not trust Kamala, but if we're spoken to by someone like Michelle Obama, would trust her, right? And say, even though I disagree, even though they didn't pay me, even though I didn't get, my school bill paid, but if Michelle Obama says that I can push these people over to this side at some point, we can negotiate, well, I'm going to trust her, right? And hold on a second, John. And yes, she might be older. That's true. But at the end of the day, John, I'm saying that even being able to get young people to come to the table, they're not even willing to come to the table. Look at what Chris just wrote. He just said older black folks sold out.
All right, so Ed, I'm gonna bring Chris Randall on right now. Hold on, I'm gonna bring Chris Randall on right now. He's been wanting to get in.
We got our beloved madam.
Now, Chris Randall, we're coming to the end of this segment. You've been listening to it, right? You've been listening to it. You have 2 minutes, Chris. What was just said? You are one of the voters we're talking about, right?
Yep.
You hate Kamala Harris. You hate Joe Biden. You've been calling him a segregationist. You're not voting. You have said that Ice Cube thing may make a difference. You're not sure. So what was just said is that Michelle Obama could convince you. 2 minutes, Chris. What do you think?
2 words for anybody last name Obama. Muammar Gaddafi. I'm good.
I'm with you there 1,000%. And that's fluid.
So what I'm saying is, I think that there's a cosmopolitan black person that Michelle Obama probably could get to, but she can't really talk to me. For me, I think it has to be something that is explicitly black. Because for me, as Zaid would say, child of the Black Panther Party, anything that's not explicitly black is white. So I think that the reason why Ice Cube's contract with Black America matters to me is because I think they're a very particular issue that I think are relevant, that I think that Joe Biden won't speak to, right? I think that the reality for me is that racism gonna be racism, gonna be racism, gonna be exclusion, gonna be whatever, right? The Supreme Court has never been our friend. I'm not really that afraid. But for me, I need to understand how the material conditions of my existence are gonna be better under a Biden presidency. And right now, I don't know why that would be true. He is a neo-capitalist for sure. Both of them are neoliberal. I got Kamala Harris coming out saying, I'm not going to do nothing. She's both out of her own mouth has said that in several different interviews that she would never do anything explicitly to help black people. So unless that move changes, I don't know why Michelle Obama, who couldn't tell me that would happen, would motivate me to do that. Right. And I think it would have to be somebody who I think has a larger agenda, like a Ice Cube or a T.I., who's talking about reparations or something. But I would need somebody who is saying something specifically black. Because at the moment, I don't have that. I don't need 3 minutes.
You know what's interesting is I think and what's up, Donna? And I think the way you just prosecuted that whole case about Kamala saying that she would never do nothing for black folk. If you prosecuted it on that level, yes, black folk, not even me, would get excited about going in and voting for either Biden or her, right? But I'm telling you that the only thing I've heard her say is that she doesn't support reparations, right? But I didn't hear her say that she would never do nothing for black folks.
Well,
I haven't heard that.
Chris is actually taking that slightly out of context. That's the way he heard it.
So you're saying I can't put the interview in the chat?
Yes. What she said was, I will not do something exclusively to help black people. Right now, I know how you're taking it. Right, the different. Like Elizabeth Warren said, we need to do policies that specifically help black people.
Yes.
Because if we don't specifically, if they're not targeted to help black people, then they'll be ineffective. Kamala Harris on that same issue with that same question said, I don't need race-specific remedies, because her argument was that healthcare helps everybody, including Black people. That's what Chris is talking about. So she didn't say, I'm not going to do anything to help Black people. She said, none of my policies will specifically target.
I don't know if anybody heard me, but I said if it's not explicitly Black, it's white. I said that.
Right, but you said that she said she would do nothing for Black people.
I'm not going to do
different statement.
I'm not. If I say I'm gonna give money to Newark, that's not the same as saying I'm giving money to John Austin.
Right, I'm with you. I'm not saying that.
Maybe I'm just not.
Words are important, and there's specific words that you said that make it seem like it was like I hate Black people, which is not what she said. She's like, I will help Black people.
No, the true love case let me know she hates Black people. I didn't need her an interview to tell me that. You know, her shoving a murder case down somebody's throat that she knew was innocent will let me know how she feels about Black people. That's a whole nother conversation. But no, I need somebody to give me something specific that I can sink my teeth into and support. Other than that, I don't know why. I don't know what the benefit is. Like there was a meme that was just put on Facebook today that I thought was interesting. It said, "Tell me why Biden is better than Trump without saying the words. Tell me why you voting for Biden other than without saying the words Donald Trump."
Well, Annette Austin says 190,000 people died under Trump. That's the agenda that we might live, so we might be able to live. That's what she just said.
Sure. I mean, I think
you see that.
Several years ago, I said any Black person that dies is a victim of a middle passage. So 190 is a drop in the bucket compared to 4.5 million. That's a whole other conversation. I mean, you know, that's not how I feel about it. Maybe, you know, other people feel different. But
the only thing that I and this is where I try and struggle with my younger heads, and I'm talking about from Chris's age on down, is that some of us are old enough to remember how things were, you know, before we had these advances. And even though the advances, you know, are being gutted and have been gutted over the process of the last several administrations, Democrat and Republican, we need to be clear about that, right? Yeah. We are looking at, if with a loss to the so-called Democrats, an acceleration of the right wing, you know, we started a conversation with Ed talking about the stacking of federal courts, and you know, you think we're going to prison now?
Yeah,
you know that means.
Right. So who we want to be the vice president is the person who supports the prison industrial.
And we also have to look at things dialectically too. She is not where she was when she was doing that when she ran for president. She did move somewhat, not much, but somewhat to the left once she became Senator Harris, right? Than where she was as DA Harris, right? And so that needs to be acknowledged. But what I'm saying is this: to the degree that the overwhelming, you know, majority of our people are vested into the Democratic Party, we, you know, it is just as okay in my judgment to kick they behind when they get in as it is to kick Trump's behind. And we might get more out of kicking their behind than getting out of Trump. But and where I'm really going with that is that the ones who are going to be doing the behind kicking are going to be representing the future of the party. And I'm not talking about no 20 years from now. I'm talking about within the next several years. You know, I need y'all using some party language to seize the goddamn time.
That was a great book by Bobby Seale. It really was. And I'm gonna seize my behind right on this couch. If I don't hear no specific thing come out of Democrat, my behind will be seized to this chair.
But I mean, I think that Chris Randall, I think that.
Let Donna.
No, I was going to say to that point.
No, Donna, you have not.
You ready? Can you hear me?
Yeah. You also heard somebody going.
That wasn't me. Yeah, but I just wanted to make sure that we have to be mindful that once people get elected, we have to hold them accountable. Because what I do remember as being a younger person when Clinton was in office and crack was just rampant in our communities. I remember older adults being scared, and I remember my mom having a meeting in her living room with County Exec Joe DiVincenzo. Congressman Payne Sr. brought Congress, now County Exec Joe DiVincenzo to be introduced. And one of the things that the seniors in my community asked Congressman Payne seniors, what are we going to do to get rid of crack cocaine? Can you bring the National Guards to our community? It was like, for them, it was all or nothing. So when you are an elected official and you're hearing from the people who you represent asking for relief, now they may not, now bringing a National Guard may not have been what they actually wanted, but they knew that they needed help. So, and then the policies that came about as a result of crack cocaine was a result of people crying out, we needed help. So we have to make sure that when we ask, we understand our ask and realize the consequences of those asks as well. So I mean, we have to be very, very mindful, and we have to hold them accountable, but we have to collectively remember when we ask for things, we have to remember what we're asking for, or know what we're asking for, because it may not be exactly what we want to.
Chris, you heard me. Kick they behind.
We are actually getting ready to move on to our next segment. We have our guests here, but when we're talking about this has been a great conversation that we've had. And I think that one of the things that my big takeaway, and one of the things I always want to emphasize, I want to emphasize this to Chris, and I want to emphasize this to anybody who's young, who is listening, is that the statement of sit on the couch is probably the worst thing that you could do, because to be taken seriously, you got to get up and be out and vote. Now, if I would say, even if you are like, I am not going to vote for the current ticket, but I'm going to vote for a third party or vote for, I think that is more politically astute than doing nothing. Because you are demonstrating, because if you really want to thumb it to somebody, right? And it's not my recommendation, I want Trump out. But politically, if you really want to make people understand what they need to do to eventually get your vote, you need to show them that they lost it. Because if you don't vote, if you're not out there, they're just going to assume that you wouldn't have voted anyway. And that is what older Black people think. I think, like my opinion, I think older Black people think younger Black people all talk, no action. They think the same thing about Bernie Sanders. All talk, couldn't do it. So they take it seriously.
But I think, John, you said something. Zaid, you talked about President Obama in his first 2 years. Yeah, now he had both houses, but guess what? And he was pushing
Washington instead of staying populist.
No, he pushed some things. He pushed some things forward that the Democrats pushed back on. So
let me be specific, though.
But let me finish.
We disagree.
Because if the Democrats, if they had both, they had everything they need to push far left agenda. They had it, but they became critical of one another, and a lot of things didn't move. So you have to get it to his desk for him to sign. So if he's pushing, I think healthcare, he actually did in his first 2 years, and the first healthcare bill was, I can't think of the word, but they pushed back on that because the other side said no, we didn't want that. So something that the Democrats don't do that the other party Republicans do is they go rogue. Like, listen, we got everything we need. We're gonna push, and we don't care anybody want. We're gonna push our agenda, and I think that's something that the Democrats don't do well. We're morally conscious. I guess that's what you would say.
Well, here's where I'm concerned, and I appreciate what you're saying, right? But here's where I think Mr. Obama made his mistake, right? And it's clear. Right? Folks are looking at how brutally inhumane Trump has been on deporting and locking up immigrants of color. Right? Prior to that, that's the big mistake that Mr. Obama made. It come from his early days. You know, he was deporting more than any other president instead of expanding the base of the organization by accelerating the process of those folks to come in and be likely to be the most natural and likely supporters, right? And so within 2 years, guess what happened? That element that was once enthusiastically supporting him, they stepped back. in the middle of the divide that you're talking about, and the right came in and took over. And the first thing they did, marched right up to the Supreme Court with a backwards case out of Alabama and gutted the Voting Rights Act. And
so you're
under that right now.
So you're talking about he was the porter in chief, but he
that's before he overthrew the most populous, most stable, and the most progressive African country on the continent.
Okay.
You're talking about Libya, right?
Libya.
So I think that when we are getting ready to move into our next segment, we have because we're going to be continuing a really good discussion, and we're going to bringing in Dr. Kelly Harris, professor of Africana Studies at Seton Hall University, brilliant person, friend of the show. He's here a lot, and so Dr. Kelly Harris, welcome.
Hi.
Good to have you back, son. Good to have
you. Can't hear you.
All right,
can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Okay. Yes. You have a lot of background noise. You have a lot of background noise right now.
I do.
Yeah, it's like an echo. And so,
is that better?
That's better.
That's better. Okay.
All right. Is that? Wait, hold on. I think maybe that's not. Talk to me.
That's not better.
Talk. Say anything.
That's not better.
No, that's not better. That's worse. That's worse.
Hold on, man. Let me try to figure this out. I don't know why.
You're good now. You might be good now.
That's better.
That's better.
That's better. Okay, so I don't know what's wrong with it. Okay.
I don't know. Sometimes it just needs to start off. But we're good. We're good. So thank you for coming back on, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right. So we've been having this lively discussion. We wanted to do a little bit of a shift in this discussion from the politics that we're talking about in terms of the presidential race and getting people out to things that are more local, because all politics are local. So we want to start off with that. We have a guest. Actually, we have two guests. The first guest, who's going to be with us for the entire roundtable discussion, you can introduce. He is on. Dr. Kelly Harris, can you introduce another esteemed professor who is also your guest, or who also our guest?
I don't know that he's esteemed, but but this is Brother Kwesi Densu from Florida A&M University. He's professor of political science and of Africana Studies at Florida A&M. He's been there for quite some time. He's a scholar who specializes in, I think he might quibble with this, but I'm going to say indigenous development, but he also specializes in the politics of Africa, of African Americans in Cuba, the connection there. So he might quibble with that. So I'll let him say what he specializes in.
Oh, I should introduce
myself for Cuba.
Hello?
Say it
again.
So Kwesi, you have to introduce yourself. He said
if y'all
want to go to Cuba, who you are.
That was the introduction. No, I just, my name is Kwesi Densu. Like you said, I teach in political science and African American studies at FAMU and do political work in North Florida, Tallahassee area. And, I do research and work, Black social movements, agrarian social movements among Black people, environmental justice, stuff like that. Black international.
I should add too that he's a child of the movement. Tell him who your father was and who your father worked with.
You see, come on.
It's important, brother. It's important.
Well, Dr. Harris, you're going to introduce him or not?
You're like, introduce yourself, and you were like, well, you're not good enough. You got to say more.
I'll just keep that to myself right now.
We want to know now. Who's your dad?
He's going to say it anyway.
Well, actually, I should say this, because we're in New Jersey, right?
Yes.
So y'all familiar with Marsha Brown?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of my comrades.
That's my aunt.
Oh.
So our families were in the same organization, right?
So you know Karma.
That's my little sister, yeah.
Okay, and so Mayor Warren is our mayor here in Orange.
There you go.
There you go.
I
Okay.
never formally met him,
Okay.
but you know, Carmen and I grew up together. I was
Okay.
back and forth to Newark. We
Okay.
were organizational babies, and then we went to Tuskegee undergrad together.
Oh.
Oh, nice.
awesome.
Well, so you've got a lot of great connection to the city because both of them are incredibly good people.
Yeah.
Incredibly good people.
And we got Thomas Luna too.
Yes. Well, we have and that goes to the last introduction.
Jonathan, you just muted yourself accidentally, right? And while he unmutes, there you go. Johnny, he's still muted. He doesn't realize it. Kelly, why don't you tell us about this next young man?
Jonathan is talking and talking. Thomas,
Thomas,
unmute yourself.
Unmute too.
How's everybody doing this evening?
Introduce yourself, Thomas. Introduce yourself, sir.
How y'all doing?
Great.
Good.
Good. I just was coming at the tail end of y'all's conversation, and I was like, wow, that sounded great. For everybody that's been listening, really, really, really good stuff. Thank y'all for having me. My name is Thomas Luna. I'm a teacher here in the city of Newark in the West Ward at Rise Academy. I've been teaching for 11 years now, 8th grade math. It is 8th graders. They're the best. But outside of that, by night, I am a co-chair for an organization, a grassroots organization here called NEED, which is Newark for Educational Equity and Diversity. It is grassroots in its truest sense in that we really meet in people's houses. Well, now it's virtually to figure out what the issues are. And then we come together to decide what the issues we will go after will be. And then we use people power to try and get it done. And it's in that vein that I've been asked to come here today and chat a little bit about what we have cooking, and then also hear from you fine folks about the ideas that y'all have as well. So thank you so much for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Thomas, you've been here before, correct?
Yes. We were here 2 years ago.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
Okay.
So Kwasi?
Kwasi.
Okay. So I won't go Andrew Gilliam on you. Okay.
Just call him Densu.
Densu, because I was
we still want to know who the boy's dad is. He ain't telling.
So I wanted to go Andrew Gilliam, but you got Dr. Warren and you're local. But as we start this hour off, I just want to start off with, because we're obviously here on 9/11, and just really, really quick, does everybody remember where they were on that day? And Thomas, how old were you? We start with you because you're the baby.
I was in the 8th grade.
Yeah.
I was in the 8th grade. I grew up with my mom. She worked 3 jobs. And so our time together was in the news in the morning. And then by that time in the morning, I was in Texas then, people didn't know what was going on. They thought it was a bomb. There was no idea of what was happening. We just knew that something terrible had happened, and it was slowly trickling into the news.
Okay. All right. And Densu, what do you remember?
I was rushing to class at Georgia State.
Okay.
And I remember people panicking because I think they heard that it was an actual attack. So they started leaving downtown Atlanta thinking something similar would happen.
Okay. Dr. Harris?
I was in the 5th grade when that happened.
Really? You was in the 5th?
Yeah.
He
I was in
lied.
the 5th grade.
He lied. He really lied.
Like what? Good, Dr. Harris.
No, I was teaching at Bowie State University at the time, and I remember I had just started my class, and I had a student come in late and say something was happening. He just saw it, and we all left and went to the Catholic Student Union and watched the television to see what was happening. So that's where I was.
And Zaid?
Well, I got to come at this another way.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody blew up America, right? I hope DJ Rhino got that on cue, because Miri definitely made an important point about what 9/11 was. It was a blowback, what we call in intelligence language, and a colossal intelligence failure, to say the least, of the American security state. And it's also the anniversary of another 9/11, the 9/11 that was the overthrow of the Allende government in Chile, with the abetting of the CIA. You know, I don't want folks to forget that. I was actually supposed to go into the city on the PATH train that day. So I got turned around and didn't go. So I thank the God of our ancestors that I didn't, you know. But I was in Newark. It was between Newark and I ran a program in Union County, a children's program in Union County. And then something pulled me back from going into town in order for me to get to work on time. And I didn't go. And it was right before I was actually leaving my last Newark address. I was on Washington Street at the time when I was in Newark.
Jonathan?
Yeah, I was having computer hijack issues. I keep joking that every time before the show, like my computer works well all week long, but right before I ever start the show, or sometimes during the show, all of a sudden weird stuff happens. My mic freezes, all the other stuff. So for the last 5 minutes, I've been trying to get my keyboard to actually work, so I can shut up, so I can turn on my mic. So that happens.
But we were
I just wanted
asking
to
before you go, and we were asking, do you remember where you were at on 9/11 back in 2001?
Yeah, I was teaching class. I was at Science Park High School teaching class, and from the back of my classroom, we could actually see the towers fall, and we saw the smoke from the third floor of the building. You could actually see the planes crash. All the stuff on. I didn't necessarily I heard about a lot of this stuff later, but a kid runs into my class and was like, "The Twin Towers blew up. The Twin Towers blew up." I was like, "Boy, don't you say something like that. That's horrible." They was like, "No, it really happened. It's like a movie." And I'm like, "Whoa." And when I looked at my students, I was like, "Oh my God, how many of you are going to go to actual war?" Like I was looking at my 14-year-olds and I was like, "Some of you aren't going to make it through this. Like y'all don't know it. Y'all 14, y'all like, wow, but a lot of y'all might die because of this, because we're going to war." And when they said the second one hit, it was coordinated, I was like, damn. It just sounded like something Al-Qaeda had done earlier in terms of coordinated attacks, and all the stuff was in the news. And I was like, oh, we're going to fight in Afghanistan. I couldn't predict Iraq, but I knew we were going to go to war in Afghanistan, and I knew it was going to last a generation.
Okay, there you go. So go ahead, you can keep going. I'm sorry.
There.
Go ahead.
That's
You were
right.
about to say, Jonathan.
I was going to say, initially I was going to, and when I was doing the introductions before my mic got hijacked, then I was going to introduce Thomas Luna. Tommy Luna, he is an organizer for the NEED program. And he's really
missed that. They did that.
Right, but he's really just on to tell what's going on this week. So they have the program. There's something that's going on that I want him to talk about because I think it's important. So what's up, Tommy?
Again, thank y'all for having me very, very briefly. But tomorrow, NEED is hosting its Issues Assembly virtually. I actually put the invite on the All Politics is Local Facebook page. And what it is, it's a chance for everyone who has been involved with the House meetings that we've had to decide from the 12 issues that came up over and over and over again, what are the 3 that we're going to collectively go after, right? The way that we got here was that we had about a month and a half of House meetings, which are just invites to people that we know were active in the community, went to school board meetings, went to council meetings, went to police precinct meetings, and we asked them, hey, you want to talk about some of these issues? A lot of them said yes, and we had about 10 to 12 people in each Zoom session and asked them 2 questions. What boils your blood about this city, and how do we fix it? And the conversations were powerful, they were emotional, and they were the start of a larger organizing process to get us some policy changes, governance changes, or money changes on the books. And so tomorrow, what we will be doing is deciding of the numerous issues that came up at these House meetings, which 3 are most important. And we will decide that together with all 78 people in the room. It's something that we've done live and in person at the YMCA. It's very exciting, high energy, and we're just really looking forward to the ideas that are come forth and the issues that we're going to tackle for the next 1 to 2 years.
Tom, are they just school issues or they city issues?
Oh, they run the gamut. So there are some things that are school-based, some things that came up like school and state curriculum and the testing culture and IEPs. And then there's city beautification, environmental racism, public transportation, housing, affordability, segregation within the city. It really runs the gamut across the board. And, just saying the thing is like a lot of schools issues and city issues go hand in hand. So we're really, really looking forward and really excited about tomorrow.
So the organization, what you do is try to identify people in the community who are leaders, help train them and talk to them, and then help them galvanize on issues that they think are important.
Yes, yes. And we reach out to anyone who is just active in our schools, around the city, et cetera, just because we're like, yeah, you have something to say. Let's see if we can bring that in and make it part of this energy that we're building together, and really go after some things that we collectively decide are really, really important to us.
And the question, and there's always a question that I would have, and I'm glad that we have all of our guests here. I remember last time you were here, and I was always pushing back on language, and I was pushing back on like some of the charter school stuff, and we were having I thought it was really good back and forth. And the question I asked you then was, and it's the same question now, how do you assure that you're not guiding or directing the conversation to a preconceived conclusion, as opposed to these are internal needs that come from the community? Like, what is there in need in terms of its organization, the people who are backing it? Like, what is there about the organization that makes it an actual grassroots movement, as opposed to people pushing a particular agenda?
Yeah, I mean, great question. I think it's twofold. One is that the issues that come up aren't like me or people that I'm buddy with just sitting in a room and being like, you know what, I think this is an issue, right? It comes up from the conversations we have in people's houses, right? It's been virtually, but it's simply like, hi, do you want to come to this meeting and talk about issues? Great. Let's talk about them. And then tomorrow, everyone gets a vote about what those issues should be, right? For me, tomorrow, I'm simply a facilitator. I'm like, cool, I'm going to set up the breakout rooms and the Zoom and have the good music and all of that, while people have really strong and powerful discussions in the breakout rooms, and then come back, and then everybody gets a chance to vote on what those issues are, right? One person gets one vote. And because of that, right, I strongly believe that is the way that we check against like any one interest, right? It comes up through a consensus of the people that are there.
And to be clear, as need, it is like you consider your position not as an advocacy position, but as a mediation position. Like, you don't have any preconceived politics in the organization. The organization exists simply to train people and I'm asking this because I don't know the answer to this question, right? Do you exist, like, does everyone in need simply exist to facilitate the conversation, or is there any programmatic thing that comes from the organization itself?
So yes to both, I would say. Like, everyone in need gets trained and has the opportunity to be trained on how, like, our approach to organizing, right? House meetings, issues assembly, policy formulation, etc. And with that, they're also invited to everything that we have in terms of like meeting with the decision makers that have the power to decide on whatever policy we are proposing. They, you know, if we organize everyone to a school board meeting, come out and join us, right? Everybody has the autonomy to learn as much as they want, be involved as much as they want, or just show up when they can. A lot of our folks are really, really busy with their jobs and their kids and whatnot. The analogy that we make is like, need is almost like double dutch. Like, we will keep the ropes turning, and you decide when you want to jump in or out.
So, and because again, I don't know the answer to this question. So need is both. Need has its own political agenda, and they help people with their agenda at the same time. So like, need has there's a policy position for need, and then there's also the facilitation aspect, but those are two different things.
Yes, in that, I think the piece about the policy is like, the members decide what those policies are, right? Like, we don't sit around and be like, this is it, right? From the issues assembly, we'll figure out what our policy stances are for the next 2 years, right? So, 2 years ago, it was making sure students were at the table. So every meeting we had with council person or school board member or superintendent, we were sure to include high school students and middle school students from across the city, right? The other thing was about voting. We took a stand on the type 1, type 2 school board that we would have that was on the ballot 2 years ago. And then the other issue that came up was budgets. We had a policy that made it to finance and made it to governance that would require schools to essentially hear from the community about the things that they wanted when it came to budget season. And then like that was going great. And then all of a sudden COVID happened and everything got put on pause. But what we're going to find out tomorrow are the policy positions for need for the next 2 years. Okay, so the policy positions will actually come, all of the policy positions for need will actually come from the assembly. Yes. All right, cool. I mean, that was the general gist of the question. So thank you so much, right? Like I think that we definitely are going to have you back and definitely going to have talk more about it. But I like the aspect of just understanding that there needs to be organization within people. And how do you organize? How do you get things done? How do you develop policy positions? And I think those are really good conversations to have, and good conversations to interrogate. So thank you so much.
Jonathan, before he leaves, let him share how folks can reach it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm a long time. I haven't heard of Need. I won't check them out.
Sorry, what was the question?
How do we follow the organization? How do we find and follow the organization?
Oh yeah, there's 2 ways. Yeah, there's 2 ways. One is that we have a website, needandj.org. There you can find contacts and find out more about the organization. And then we have a Facebook page, Need and J, and that has all of our updates. And that is a great way that people have followed up with us, signed up for one-on-ones, learned more about it, joined house meetings, etc.
All right, cool, great.
And I was going to say, is Tom staying with us, or is he leaving?
No, he's leaving now because we're focusing on the other guests that we have because we know that we have rich discussions as well. So thank you so much for coming on, and thank you so much for talking about this. And we will definitely have you back on the show to talk about what are the new policy positions, what was the result. So thank you so much for coming out.
Absolutely, thank you. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you.
All right, so we thank you so much also, Dr. Harris. We know we were getting started with the conversation with you, and we were getting started with the conversation with Dr. Dentsu. So what's going on, man? Like every time you come on the show, I learn something. Like you start talking about like what's going on, and then it leads to a deeper conversation, and then we're all in. I wanted to definitely start with Tommy Luna, because I think that is something that community organizing, dealing with grassroots politics, is always something we end up going back to. So I wanted to start off with that and see what you think, and let's go from there.
It's interesting what he was talking about, need, what they do and what they work on, because I developed something a while ago that Dentsu uses, and I think he perfected it better than I did. But it's called a Model Gary program for high school students. But it's kind of similar to what Tommy was talking about, but it's taking students, Black students in particular, who work at the college level, but it should be in the high schools, but taking students really to focus on issues that are pertaining to Black students, to the Black community, like the Gary Convention from 1972, the 1972 National Black Political Convention. And it really challenges students to solve the problems that we continually face at a local, national, and international level. So I'm just sharing that because I think it connects to what he was saying. I kind of got excited about what he was talking about because I think that's something that we should be doing with our public school system, with our Black students.
Where do you work on this program? And you also said that Dr. Dentsu does a similar program? Yeah,
well, he was doing it at Florida A&M. So it's called the Model Gary program. Functions in many ways like the Model United Nations, but it's based on the 1972 National Black Political Convention in Gary, which of course Amiri Baraka was really the host of sorts, the MC for the whole program, the lead organizer for that program. But it had Black leaders from all walks of life at that convention in '72. They tried to develop an independent Black political party. But of course, it was so many different. You got Marxists, you got Pan-Africanists, you got elected officials. You got the Christians, you got the atheists, you got the union representatives. You have so many different. It was hard for them to really get together on particular things. But if we go back and look at the issues that they dealt with, the same things that we deal with today. They had statements about the prison industrial complex. And you can see, those of you all who remember the Eyes on the Prize, One Eyes on the Prize, it talks about Gary and shows some highlights from Gary from that convention. But I think that's what we should be doing in terms of education. We should be trying to get our students. The purpose of education is to identify problems and to be able to solve problems. And oftentimes we don't do that. The way we're taught and the way we teach is rote learning, where we just memorize things and we're not really challenging our students at any level to solve problems and to identify and solve problems.
I appreciate that. I'm a high school debate coach, and one of the things I say that we always do and teach when I teach high school debate is an advocacy training course. And what we do is we teach kids how to advocate to figure out how to solve problems as a general thing, so that when they leave school, they can figure out that whatever aspect of life they're in, they are problem solvers. They are ethical problem solvers. They will look at a situation and they will try to figure out, how do we fix this? What do we do? And I think that is incredibly important.
That's right.
And so, Dr. Harris or Densu, you doing that right now down in Florida A&M with your students?
Yeah, in the context. And I'm not sure when Kelly talked about everybody's familiar with the Model United Nations, or are you familiar with that? No.
I've heard.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it is just when students imitate the UN. Howard has a Model AU, Model African Union. So Dr. Harris, Kelly,
man, come on.
Kelly came up with the idea. He said, "Man, we need to do the Gary Convention." I was like,
"That's a great idea."
Yeah.
Do y'all know David Horn?
Say it again.
You know David Horn, Professor David Horn from University of California at Fullerton?
No.
Serious Pan-Africanist works. He works that model too.
Okay, that's what's up. Yeah. So we just in the context of the classroom, turn it into a Black political convention. Students are divided up into different Black social movement organizations. They're given like a way to reflect on and study the ideology of those organizations, strategies and tactics, all of that, some of the political history. And then we throw up different categories of issues. They could be economic, social, legal, whatever, environmental, and then come up with some specific questions that they have to then go in the context of their group. Or I use the term Indaba, which is a traditional political institution in the Southern African region, based on consensus. They hash them out, and they come up with positions, and they vote on them, they, debate them, etc. So, it's been fruitful. It has its challenges, but it like Kelly said, it's been a rewarding process, and speaks. I forget his name, who was on earlier. Speaks to much of what Tommy talked about. But it's interesting, when Kelly says the purpose of education is to solve problems. So that is a definite purpose, to identify and solve problems. I remember growing up, there was a pamphlet that my folks helped produce. It was called Education to Govern. So, and it was, Kelly, that was actually first published, or rendition of that, in one of the Institute of the Black World publications.
Okay.
So the idea was that
In the Georgia days of the Institute of Black World, the old days, yeah.
Yeah.
So the idea was education should facilitate a process for young people, for people in a general sense, within the context of the community, to govern themselves in all things that people need to know in order to do that in an effective and ethical way. Which in many ways I also have been for a long time associated with the Council of Independent Black Institutions, independent Black schools, and origin of that organization is along the same lines. This idea of self-governance. Now, people got different perspectives about what that looks like concretely on the ground and in practice. But it's interesting for a variety of different reasons.
So you said it has its own challenges, and are you saying when you're presenting this to the students and there are challenges, are you talking challenges with the students? Is that what you're referring to when you said challenges?
Yeah, challenges with the students. I guess you could say the culture of politics among young people today, in particular, young Black and brown people, some of the preconceptions they bring into the classroom. It's real interesting on multiple levels.
So do you think what you do with the students, do you, from the beginning to the end of the process, do you think it helps them better navigate themselves through the world and through politics, or it makes them a little bit more critical, like they expect more from their elected officials? How does it help, or just make it a little bit more challenging for them to navigate world politics?
I would hope. There's nothing I've done concretely to figure out what they're thinking about that experience, let's say 3 or 4 years or beyond after they've had it. The goal is, and we discussed that there, the purpose of this process is for you to expand your own political consciousness. And because it's actually in the context of FAMU, it's a senior seminar course. So it's supposed to be the last course they take before they leave. So we're like, okay, you grow out of the social science department, because this is what I say in my class, and it's the orientation, philosophical orientation that Kelly's class was driven by, this idea that Black schools should serve Black interests, and the curriculum should be centered around the cultural and the political development of Black folks. So now you got this degree. What are you going to do with it? Well, you want to solve problems for Black people, and we're going to engage in an exercise in this space to demonstrate that. Now, do they do that 3 or 4 years after they leave? I couldn't tell you. The ones that keep up with me, I assume that's what they are doing, because our relationships are maintained. But in the city itself now, though, speaking on local politics, there's an effort by an organization called Tallahassee Alert to develop like a Black political slate. And out of that discussion came, well, we need to have a conversation about Black political development in Tallahassee and the various tendencies, conflicts, all of that. And then the question was raised, we need to have a local Gary. So, and then who can help facilitate that process for Black social and political organizations in Northern Florida, in the Tallahassee area, to come together prior to local elections to hash out issues, to come up with a local Black political agenda that might be very contradictory given the ideological tendencies within the community, but nonetheless, it's a political space for folk to think about where we should be going. And, you know, just kind of, and it's the same kind of process, this consensus building, you know, a piece and how that looks in a local political context. So that's a very new initiative in its infancy. It's like taking the thing out of the classroom and putting it on the ground within the community and see if it works.
And to that, and I joked about in the beginning. Andrew Gilliam, is Andrew Gilliam from Florida A&M?
Very much so.
Okay, so no, and I say that, but and it's funny because there was a conversation because I think on Tamron Hall he made his first statement publicly this week, and there was a comparison of will he be able to, because he, you know, they tried to stretch him, are you going to go back into politics, but he didn't want to go that far. He just wanted to talk about where he is now. But they put him up against Marion Barry, and, you know, could he redeem himself? Because at the end of the day, Marion Barry was the people's candidate. So after all was said and done, the people still voted for him. And we're down in Florida. Is there that type of support around that brother? You said something, Dr. Harris?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Okay.
You know, this is what I would say, and some people are better able to answer this question better than me. His political development was very much, I want to say, aspirational. So it always had this thrust to move from the local stage to the national stage, you know, and because he was, if I'm not mistaken, this was long before I was here, he was SGA president. So there, you know, there's kind of a buzz around the fact that I want to say it's maybe 3 or 4 cities that have mayors of people who graduated from FAMU. The sister in Atlanta, I want to say, I get my butt kicked for not knowing these, but you know, it's like 3 or 4. And the university recently developed a relationship, and I just saw it come across an editorial. I want to say the National Conference of Black Mayors to develop a institute that would train Black mayors or participate in the training of Black mayors around social justice issues, right? And so you got that. I'm saying all that because you got that kind of history of FAMU in relationship to national politics and local politics in the state, as well as to some degree the city. But it's kind of absent of being entrenched in grassroots politics in the city. So to that extent, I think his support in Tallahassee is very kind of superfluous. Like he's here, but he's like a national pop. Now you go up on the campus, then there's that whole political culture on campus. You know, he's a FAMU grad. He was SGA president. He ran for governor. He was the first Black, but that's not really connected to any local tradition of Black political mobilization in Tallahassee itself, where you would see kind of folk coming out of different spaces to say, we give support to him. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, that's funny. That's almost like the school days. The HBCU is still kind of somewhat maybe disconnected from the community. Okay.
Well, I'm not disconnected.
Somewhat. I said somewhat. Yeah.
Like you got, you got tendencies, right? And yeah, you're right. There's that thing. So, because he had when they thought he was going to win the election, that whole thing was done on FAMU's campus the night before the election results came out.
Mm.
Because it has implications for the school if he is governor.
Right.
In a Republican, where the state house is controlled by Republicans, and Tallahassee is like, Tallahassee is not a predominantly black city. So the coalition building and then it's a city that's the state capital, but there's also 2 universities, FSU and us 3 actually, Tallahassee Community College. So, you don't have like the history of a consistent culture. I'll call it, let's say, a black radical political tradition like maybe you have in Newark. You don't have that here. And it definitely doesn't inform. Well, you had it in the 60s era, but fundamentally 60s, late 70s, coming out of the Black Freedom Movement, but in the 80s and 90s, that thing kind of don't have no roots in the grassroots, if that makes any sense, at the electoral political level. But it's definitely a lot of people doing non-electoral politics work around socioeconomic justice, food, education.
Okay. So you're looking to do what Amiri did in Gary in Tallahassee.
That's what the conversations are. Yeah. And since I teach in the political science department, there's a center called the Center for Democracy and Center for Deliberative Democracy.
Okay.
And what we're talking about doing is making that a space that will do it'll be linked to Tallahassee Alert, but will facilitate a lot of the policy analysis.
It's fun. Yeah, if you talk Mayor Keisha Lance Bottom, she's in Atlanta. Dr. Satcher, who was a Surgeon General under President Obama, he did that type of leadership at Morehouse Medical. So that would be, but it was, it was not ongoing. It was kind of maybe a grant for a one-time thing, but that would be, and it was geared toward Black elected officials in urban areas. So that would be really something. Dr. Harris, we actually have a speech from Amiri Baraka in Gary. Did you want to see a piece of that, sir? Or do you have it? Or do you want to talk about, because that's where everything came from.
Oh, you can play it if you want.
I just want to make sure. So Mike, if you could play a minute of it.
See if Michael can handle it.
Yeah. And Dr. Harris, and Mike, you heard me, so you can cue it up when you get a chance. But Dr. Harris, I know you were having some conversations with Mayor Baraka and Chairman Ham. How did that go, sir?
It went really well. It's interesting because one of the sad things I think that we have to do is we have to do the work, the 60s all over again. And what I mean by that is that these students, a lot of these young students have no historical context. Mm-hmm. So, it's interesting. Even these students right here at Seton Hall, many of them from surrounding areas in New Jersey, I showed them, I had Mayor Baraka on, and the first thing I did, I showed a picture, a letter, actually, I'm sorry, from the president of Seton Hall at the time was Monsignor Fay, Thomas Fay. Mm-hmm. And it was a letter in 1969 to the Black Student League. And he told the Black Student League, he said, we're having these discussions, we're talking about creating a Black Studies program. He said, I encourage you to meet and work with Leroy Jones of the Committee for a Unified Newark. And to me, this was powerful. And Mayor Baraka, he didn't know that. He was like, wow. And he didn't know that. And the students didn't, So I asked the students, I said, do you all know who Leroy Jones is? And the students was like, no. And that tripped me out. We here right here at Seton Hall, right? And the Mayor Baraka, he went to Seton Hall before he went to Howard. He went to Seton Hall for like a semester.
You keep saying a Mary Baraka. You mean Ross?
No, I know what I'm saying, brother.
He's talking about a Mary.
I know what I'm saying.
You just sit back and listen to us.
You worry about Andrew Gilliam. I got this.
Well, hold on, wait. Go ahead.
So, but Amiri Baraka, of course, he went to Seton Hall for like a semester in the 1950s, and the reason I know that is from the COINTELPRO files on him, where they were, they talking about his history. But so it's interesting that somebody like that, the students had no clue. So when we had Mayor Baraka on there going through that history and going through his history, going through the protests he was a part of at Howard University and things of that nature, I think it was very eye-opening for the students he's someone they respect, of course, and they all have aspirations of being leaders in the corporate world or in the political world. But to see someone like him who's connected to that activist history and who was an activist himself, and I should say is, himself, and he did not shy away from that in climbing that political ladder. I think it was a very important discussion for students to have, because we having a hard time getting these black men in particular to really look at African studies. Yeah,
the struggle for continuity and those key traditions is a big struggle.
That's right.
Go ahead. Wait, hold on one second. So, just want to. So now that we know Leroy Jones is Amiri Baraka, you had to, because Densu, you had to.
No, I knew that. I didn't know he went to Seton Hall and Howard though.
Oh,
that's what I thought you were talking about Ross, because Ross went to Howard. So when you were talking to the students, I was like, why is he saying? I didn't know Amiri Baraka went to Howard.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. But I remember when Ross was there and he had Black Neo Force and all of that.
Yeah.
All right, so just play a little bit, 30 seconds of it, Mike. You got it queued up.
Evolving out of the first Black political convention was the unanimous acceptance of Imamu Amiri Baraka, who is in the studio with me to analyze the convention. As a viable political architect, the merging of his ideology of Black nationalism and his creative history as a poet and writer were demonstrated at the Congress of African People in September of 1970.
The nationalists.
Well, you can play a little bit.
Yeah, you got to play that.
You got to give it a little bit. I'm sorry, 30 seconds of that, Mike. Mike was on his watch, like.
But see, Mike doesn't have the background either. That's to Kelly's point.
All right, go ahead. 30 seconds, Mike. Go ahead. Mike. Oh, there you go.
It must be the spine to the Black nation, not some kind of weird projection off the side of his head going off at a right angle. The nationalist must be the spine of the body of the Black nation. What the nation does, the nationalist must make him do a little better, a little faster. If it's slow, it's because we slow. You understand that? But the minute you put yourself away from the people, no matter how backward and corny you might think they are, then you are isolated, standing there by yourself, and you will get killed.
All right, Mike.
You will get killed, and it's not about being.
All right, so this is in Gary, and
that's a good clip.
Yeah. Okay.
And the reference to the Congress of African Peoples, with this marked the 50th anniversary of the Congress of African Peoples, and Amiri was chair of the Congress of African Peoples. That was a national organization that he did that represented that particular wing of the struggle, and it was a very important time for them at a crossroads time in our struggle as a consequence of COINTELPRO.
That's right.
I don't want to say they re-released it, but I've seen it in multiple Black film festivals. the actual documentary that the organizers of Gary put out, which was real good.
Yeah.
And that thing's floating around now. I watched it the other day. I
Yeah.
think the brother or the elder who recorded it with his father, they're based out of New York. I'm not sure what their name is, but they do sell it. And that thing is like an hour and something long.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's real
I
good.
need to get that.
Yeah, it's a good piece.
Yeah, it's a good piece. But it's the actual. I didn't know that the organizers of Gary did that documentary as like a propaganda thing. You know, so they re-released it.
As we begin to wrap up, Denzel, we didn't talk about. I know in the introduction, Dr. Harris talked about you were doing work in Cuba, and
Go ahead.
and we got a teaser of President Obama opening up Cuba, and then as soon as this administration came in, they shut it right down. Are you continuing your work? Was right in Florida, you're right at its doorstep. So can you tell us a little bit about that before we leave?
I am. You trying to get me in trouble though?
No, I'm not.
Well, listen, I'm gonna get you some serious trouble because next week is the 50th anniversary of Malcolm meeting Fidel, right, in Harlem, and that was a watershed moment for the non-aligned movement and for the Black liberation movement in this country. And I'm actually doing a webinar on that on September 26th. So I might have to pull you into something to get you in some real trouble.
Hey, Baba Zaid, guess what? I'm gonna put him on Front Street. His Densu's birthday.
Come on, man.
All right, okay.
Y'all teasing us.
But Dr. Harris, I mean, because we have our next person waiting to come back. But so you're really going to have to come back and talk to us about Cuba and things like that. But I do, right now we're like 6 weeks away from the general election. How are you guys doing in Florida?
Well, I mean, the short thing is what I do is I take students back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a program out of FAMU that began right after the Obama administration expanded diplomatic relations. And the name of the program is Resolver, and it studies Black people, but also the environment in Cuba.
Okay.
And it's really like an educational tour, and we go every spring. And
we can go nowadays.
Yeah, we go every spring, and then I started engaging in some research work and developing relationships down there in Florida. It's kind of an but that's really South Florida, Miami in particular, where that
we call it Gusano heaven.
Yeah, that attempt to rally the Republican forces in the state and U.S. foreign policy in particular towards Cuba and Latin America, which to me, all of the most of this recent stuff that Trump did was a prep for November.
Right.
Yeah.
But that community down there is kind of divided in a different way than it was maybe 20, 30 years ago around opening relations. And if the state goes Republican, it's for reasons much more than U.S. foreign policy to Cuba, because you got it like in that Center for Deliberative Democracy, for instance, some Dr. Abdul Sharif, who's a CAU grad, Kelly.
Okay.
He's trying to analyze Black voting behavior and public opinion, and the challenges like during the Trump when he won, why they lost Florida, Haitians people's position around Hillary Clinton based on the Clintons' activity in Haiti. And so the idea of lumping all Black people together, where these people got some positions that come from some very real places with
Right.
no awareness of, you know. And so, and that's interesting, Baba Zaid, because you know, it's the same kind of with Q. Have you heard of Walterio Carbonell?
No.
All right. So in short, I'm thinking, or some people make the argument that he was kind of the ideological architect for the Tricontinental Congress that led to that solidarity work that Cuba did.
Mm-hmm.
But he got locked down in Cuba right after the revolution because he advocated for independent Black political organization.
Mm.
So it's it's like this thing gets
everybody made mistakes, baby.
Yeah.
So, before we leave, we have a question that we have to ask. We ask everybody that comes on, who is your favorite hip hop artist and or group? Don't answer for him, Dr. Harris. Look at your face. He's like,
he from Philly, so I'm waiting. He better say somebody from Philly.
No, I can't. As a lyric, well, I mean, I would have to say Black Star.
Okay, Black Star. Okay.
Uh-huh.
I got our DJ listening to that.
I have many.
Okay.
But the Black Star would be. Yeah.
Would be the one. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we as we get ready to transition, Dr. Harris, you have to bring them back. So in 2021, are you doing your spring trip to Cuba?
We hope so, but you know, they've locked down with the COVID thing. So Havana, I think they might be still under this curfew thing.
Okay.
And I'm not so sure. I mean, whether the flight restrictions would be lifted in time. Thinking about the summer instead of the spring, but we definitely trying to get back there ASAP.
Okay, well, keep us posted and also let us know if the institute that you turn to for like mayors and things like that, if that comes to fruition as well. Okay.
Right. Definitely let you know. That's all that's at its infancy, but it's been a good talk. I appreciate Kelly. Appreciate being invited.
Well, we don't like to leave our guests hanging either. Do you want to tell us who your father is?
I mean, my father's a local activist. No, he was a local activist in Philly named Arnold Foster. But what Kelly's talking about is, and I mean, y'all are familiar with Marsha Brown's history. Yeah, James Boggs.
Out of Detroit. Yeah.
That's what Kelly was talking about. But my father was in Philadelphia. He was in the Philadelphia local.
Okay. So Arnold.
Yeah, Arnold Foster, and then Marsha Brown.
And I was going to say, I was trying to say your birth name for a reason, because Brother Zaid would appreciate that. I was trying to say your birth name for a reason.
I don't want you to do that.
You gonna stop? Well, we have to come back because actually, we do. I gotta say, Densu, I love the roots. I love the roots.
Okay.
And but we there's a lot of in Philly, we did a lot of organizing down in Philly with a reentry group down in North Philly. And this was at a time where they were organizing persons that were on parole and probation, that they would name the next district attorney. But they really did a good push to make sure that those persons got out and voted. It was really, really interesting. So North Philly had a good time down there and all in Temple and everything, walking the streets, doing organizing. It was a good time.
That's good.
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
All right, Jonathan, are you transitioning? Is Dr. Harris, you going to stay with us or what?
Am I staying? It's up to y'all.
Loser, you be running to go to the next meeting, but yeah.
I'm so mad.
We're getting ready. Look, Denzel, you've been eating the whole dog.
I'm sorry.
Hey, he's been eating the whole time we've been on here, too. He's been eating the whole time. Is that organic? Is it organic at least?
No, well, what it is all these classes being online and everything. I've been online all day. Zoom meeting.
That's the time we're living in, son.
Behaving appropriately for radio. It's just kind of offended.
Well, Denzel, stay with us, and Dr. Harris, stay with us, and we're going to bring in Craig Stanley, and he's working with the census on the ground. And we know, if you've been listening, if you've been following different, okay, Craig, you there? We're going to mute you. Okay. But we've been following what's going on with the census, and it seems like the federal government is not being sincere in its efforts to make sure that everybody is counted. And we brought Craig on to speak specifically about that, but then we would love to hear your feedback, Dr. Harris and Dr. Denzel, as to what's going on campus around census. Craig Stanley, you want to introduce yourself? He's our former assembly person here in New Jersey in the 34th district, right? Right, Craig?
Actually, that would have been the 28th legislative district. And,
but everybody didn't get counted. And everybody didn't get counted and it was combined. I said, and everybody didn't get counted and it was combined, but why was it a combined district? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, but yeah, I was in the 28th legislative district, but yeah, what we're focusing on right now is what's going on with the U.S. Census, right? And we're currently in a position where we're dramatically undercounted in our urban areas. And so what we're pushing at this point is really for an all hands on deck. And I listened to your program earlier, and it was very enlightening. You know, some of the information was, I had heard before, of course, growing up in Newark, hearing about Amir Baraka, and I was a little young then, so I didn't know really the magnitude of what he was doing. But my older siblings embraced what he was doing, and of course, my uncles were very, very much involved in the conference that you spoke of earlier, Donald Payne and Bill Payne. But now, this census really is something that's going to resonate with us for years to come, and mainly because it's going to position us to either take advantage of some of the things that your guests were talking about in terms of the sort of the reawakening of conscience in America. We saw some of it in the 60s, but I think we're seeing a lot more of it over the last, I guess, few months even. It's really a new revelation as I see it anyway. I've been around for a little while. I'm not a spring chicken, but for us to take advantage of this, we're going to need as much political power as we possibly can muster. And unless we get 100% count on this census, we're going to be fighting for changes in institutional policies, with a hand tied behind our back, or a person's knee on our neck, because we're not going to have the full representation that we would be entitled to, and an undercount in the census would lead to that scenario. So, but I'm grateful to be on. Thank you, Donna. I spent 12 years in the assembly, and it's interesting. We hear in arguing really for the case of low-income school districts, socioeconomically disadvantaged school districts. And part of it was a Supreme Court case, and most of it was political was the lack of political will. And we're always going to come across the lack of political will if we don't take advantage of our own political power. And the census is almost that's the constitution of our political power. That's sort of the basis um, uh, for distributing political power. And so there's nothing really more critical for the next, I think, 20. I guess we got 19 days now to get that counted 100%. And like I mentioned to some folks, this is an all hands on deck. You know, it's not the census people whose responsibility is. It's not the elected officials. It's not the some of these nonprofits that have been given some money to try to shake the bushes and get people counted. It's not the clergy, but it's every single person. And just doing your own census is nowhere near enough. You know, if I hear somebody and they say, well, I did the census, I said, well, let me tell you something. That's not enough. You need to make sure your neighbor does it. You need to make sure your kids do it. You need to make sure your parents do it. Anybody who has a household, we got to make sure they do it, because if you do it and they don't do it, you're still only at 50%. So if like I said, if I do my census, but half the people in my community don't do it, I'm still 50%. You know, in the original census, 1790, we were counted 3/5, so that's 60%. Right now, we're under counted at less of a percentage than the original census. Not to say that we benefited from that. The Southern slave owners benefited from that, but we will benefit from 100% count when we get it. So that's that's the crust of what we're trying to do.
Craig, yesterday I told you that a friend of mine who works for the census said that our area, particularly Orange, was at 70%. Were you able to verify those numbers?
No, they don't. You know, they don't verify what they don't give verification of what the what the enumerators do. What they continue to report is what the self response is. So right now, or as of yesterday at 3 o'clock, the self response rate in Orange was 48.1%, and I'm sorry, it was 51.1%. In East Orange, it was 51.2%. In Irvington, it was 45.5%. And in Newark, it was 48.2%. And that's the self-response rate. They don't give us the rate on the enumerators. And so and that, you know, so that number I can't verify. All I can go by is what the self-response rate is. And the self-response rate is going up, but it's not going up at a fast enough rate. And so we really need to have more education throughout the country, throughout the community, really. And I sent you, I don't know whether you got it. Well, I'm sure you got it, but I don't know. I'm sure you didn't get a chance to look at it yet because you've been on. But I sent you the link to the census update system. So they update the system daily, and there's a map that anybody can go to and see what their city level is, what the percentage of self-response is in their city. And it goes down, drills down as low as the census tract. Now, census tracts, there may be, like, for instance, in the city of Orange, there's 9 census tracts. So that shows you about how big a census tract is. So, it's not a city block. It's probably about 3 or 4 city blocks, but it gives you an idea of how your neighborhood is doing. So anybody can go in there. And so what I plan to do tonight is I'm going to post on my Facebook page, because I've been posting different folks talking about the census in different languages. And so what I will do tonight is I'm going to post the track where you can go, what website you can go to anywhere in the country, and figure out where your city is down to your census tract as far as self-response. Because I'm telling people, look, everybody needs to be contacting their relatives, their friends, and they need to be telling their friends to contact their friends, and they need to be telling their relatives to contact friends and coworkers until we're at 100%. Until we get to 100%, as far as I'm concerned, nobody's getting any peace from me. And so,
Craig, we
yes,
have two
ma'am.
professors. We have 2 professors on the line. One is at Seton Hall here in South Orange, and one is at FAMU in Florida. So when I see that, let's say that South Orange number, does that include Seton Hall, or Seton Hall, a college would be outside of a municipality?
Seton Hall, well, you got two different groups of students at Seton Hall. You have the on-campus and you have the off-campus. Now, the on-campus numbers are usually provided by the college itself, because those kids are, they're in a dormitory. If they're in a dormitory, the college can provide the information on the residency rate for those kids. But the kids who are off campus, we rely on them to self-respond. Those won't be included. And so yeah, any kind of those kinds of self-contained areas, even places like nursing homes and facilities like that, those numbers are provided by the facility owners, and they're usually pretty good and accurate. But it's those folks who are not in those types of scenarios, but individual homeowners, renters, those folks have to self-respond generally. Now the enumerators are going out now rather, door to door, and they'll be hitting people up, and some people will respond to enumerators. A lot of people don't answer their doors. I know, we know from canvassing on elections and things like that, a lot of times people don't answer the phone. A lot of times people don't respond to their door. They're less likely to answer the door if they're not expecting anybody than they are to answer their phone. So, but that's how those are counted.
Yeah, and I asked Dr. Harris, and Dr. Dentsu, from the college standpoint, has there been a separate push for you guys to talk about it in your classrooms, to ask the question? Well, even on your Zoom meetings, because it hasn't been a classroom. And are any of you, or do y'all have any classes, or everything is Zoom?
No, well, we're hybrid, right. So we have. Yeah, so we go into the classroom. There's only a couple students in there, though, and the rest are online. But there hasn't, from the university, the faculty, and I haven't heard any big push about the census, any big discussion about the census at all.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Same down here. We're all on Zoom, but that's the whole university system of Florida for the most part. There are some on-the-ground classes, but the vast majority of classes are remote. There was no institutional effort to push folk to, deal with the census. But again, you see it in pockets. And what's interesting is that same Center for Deliberative Democracy at FAMU in the Political Science Department or Division. It's also an affiliated center with the Census Bureau, so it has access to and analyzes census data, among other things. And historically, when the census came around, you would see things outside of that office on the billboard advocating for people's participation and things of that nature. So, but
So yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess, go ahead.
Yeah, it sounds. Yeah, that's. I'm sorry, it's Craig. Yeah, so that. It sounds like there's not really been much of a push with respect to the census, and at some of the, at least at those two schools, which of course, that's it's problematic, especially for places like Orange, that really houses in East Orange even, that houses a lot of Seton Hall University students. Some of them are housed in South Orange, but a lot of them are housed in Orange and East Orange. And those numbers, that really contributes to those towns' census numbers and response numbers. So it's really important. I mean, and I guess a place like
I agree with you, and I know just from hearing you talk, not only here but also at the POP meeting, you, sir, need to come talk to our students for the Black Student Union and the Black Student Council, and talk to them about the census, so we can have that discussion, because that is a void that needs to be filled at Seton Hall.
So, Dr. Craig, because what will undercount mean for our universities? Or any school for that matter?
It would mean that certain benefits that would come to those municipalities that service those kids, the funding that would go for transportation and things like that, that help supplement universities, that would certainly be reflected in an undercount. So it would lead to less funding to the municipality, and those are dollars that could be used to help provide services to that university. So it's incumbent upon everybody to try to get a 100% response. And I teach at Essex County College, so of course I've used every opportunity to send stuff to all of my colleagues there, the adjuncts as well as the full-time professors, to make sure that they let their students know. And most of the American government and political science classes give extra credit to students who do the census, because that's just part of civics. It's part of understanding the Constitution, etc. But I would be happy to come and speak to any of the schools and any of the student bodies, the student organizations, because it's critical. And we're down to the final 2 weeks. There's a court case pending, but we're not putting any eggs in that basket. We're just going full out, as September 30th right now is the deadline. So now is the time. And I'm glad that you guys are on, because you gentlemen can spread the word in your universities. But I would welcome the opportunity to talk to students.
Thank you.
Craig, is there a year that we can point to where urban cities got near 100%, or is there any year that we did come in at 100% in terms of our count?
That's an interesting question, Donna. I looked at 2010. Right now, we're trailing our 2010 numbers in Orange and most of the cities in New Jersey. I looked at Atlantic City, Vineland, Camden. All of us are trailing our 2010 numbers. But then I looked at the 2000 numbers, and the 2000 numbers, in some cases they may have been a little better, but I haven't seen anything close to 100%. So what we're pushing for and claiming and advocating for is by making as much noise about it and appealing to our friends, families, the Divine Nine, our pastor. I don't know if you saw it, Donna, but Pastor Slaughter, a devout Q, he made a very passionate plea to the Divine Nine to reach out to their brothers in their sorrows, to spread the word to them as well as their families and co-workers that this is critical and it's an all hands on deck situation.
And people really need to realize what can be lost with this undercount. It's terrible. It's terrible. I actually, one of my favorite early grassroots organizing, moments was in the 1980 census, because that's the first time I was really doing community organizing right here in Newark, right? And I literally had the Philadelphia Negro in my hand, and just the reaction that I got from our elders, engaging our elders, knocking on them doors. Oh, they'd take me in, and we really got into some. It really made me fall in love and appreciate just how important community organizing is. But if there's ever some bodies in government that would love to take some money out of our mouths and some resources out of our behind, we got them in Washington right now that would love for them to cut us up some more, nothing, and make our conditions worse. First, we really need to really wake up and appreciate how important this thing is. The other thing, though, and just to realize the challenges that we're facing, as y'all know, all the work that I do around police reform, that there are a lot of families that are afraid to reveal anything about their household, because people are getting snatched out of their homes, by our immigrant families, across the spectrum are paralyzed with fear of having to reveal any information about their families, and fears, somebody coming in and snatching their loved ones and putting them in one of these hellholes locally. And when they raise up and protest in these local hellholes, when they arrest them, they now start shipping them out of state on their way to deporting them. So there's some really shaky dynamics in our community that also need to be appreciated as we try and get out and get folks to get engaged. We're at such a crossroads, what's at stake in the country's, immediate direction with both this election and potentially with the census count if we're not careful.
And Craig, you and I guess as I look at all three of you, Craig, Densu, and Harris, you guys are all professors. So this is and you're teaching the classes that you teach and dealing with our government and impact of what we do on policy and things like that is very important. And this is something that this administration, as Zaid said in the beginning, they came in and put this fear in. And we know for communities like Orange in particular, we're a very diverse community. And I will say this, that the census, in terms of their model and how they structure it in terms of getting people out there to count, to be able to count people to make you feel comfortable. One of my first jobs was working with the census. And I remember going right in my neighborhood, knocking on people's doors, as Zaid said. And it was, oh, Donna, it's you. Yeah, you work for the census. Oh, yeah, baby, come on. You want some of this? So it was, that structure is really, really good. And I say, having that experience, when people don't pay attention to, everybody can't knock on everybody's door, first of all. Mm-hmm. And so it's important to have that grassroots team that can go into, the nooks and crannies in the community and count people, because at the end is 10 years that's going to benefit the community, to the community the most. And then and if it's not counted, it's going to be the community that's affected. And oftentimes you hear people, at council meetings, why is there a trailer at the school? Well, probably because 10 people on that block didn't count, didn't fill out their census or something. Or why are those roads never paved? Or why is that hospital closing? All of this all of this, and then I think Craig, and you can speak to this more. And in New Jersey, we actually lost a seat. Now the Institute of Social Justice will be on. Patricia, she'll be coming on. Williamson will coming on, who can speak directly to the stats. But I want to say, and Jonathan, if you remember when she came on earlier this year, I think Newark had the lowest number throughout the United States in terms of reporting. We have to, and I understand, like, before the resources were there and maybe we didn't use them properly or to our best benefit, but now these resources are being taken out of our hand and this whole process appears to be sabotaged. And now, like Craig said, yeah, let them give us any date, but we want to almost have our dates in like a week earlier, because we don't want to depend on what they say is going to happen. We just want to be ready and not have to get ready.
One of the things, like Donna, you were going to have some guests on that I thought were very interesting, and I don't know if it's funny because last time we had Dr. Kelly on, we were talking about conspiracy theories. We were talking about stuff that was going on in Chicago, but it seems like there's a lot of anecdotal evidence where people are like people who were chosen to work for the census say that they're not getting hours. They're calling and doing the training, and they're being told they're not needed. And I'm just asking, does the federal government, we know what they're doing with the post office. We know they're wrecking it. We know they're absolutely consciously wrecking it in order to affect the election, because they're telling all their voters to go to vote by poll. And Democrats are more likely to vote by mail-in ballot. And so we know that they're doing this overtly in our face. Have you heard, and this is for Craig Stanley as well, have you heard about, like, and Donna, one of the guests who was trying to get on was talking about some anecdotes about census workers who are being trained and not used, being trained or not even getting the training, being hired and then told they don't have hours. I've heard a story from a census worker. There were a few other people tonight. Donna, you heard some stories. It just sounds strange, right? Like that we know that we need as many people going out as possible. We know that it's a big deal. We know we're in the crunch situation, and I'm hearing from multiple census workers that they're just not given hours. Is it my imagination? What's going on? Greg Stanley, maybe you could speak to this some as well, and Donna as well, so, because like you're the one who actually found the guests in some of these stories. Right.
Yeah. It's problematic to hear them, and Donna had brought and I talked to one of the people who Donna probably mentioned to you. I had the conversation with her last night, and she explained what she was going through. And my position is that we document these things because everything's anecdotal until you add it all up and you see a statistic or you see a pattern, and then it becomes part of the record for a lawsuit. That there was in fact a problem with the administration of the census, and we need to listen to these stories and document these stories, and we also need to send them to the census and say, this is what we've been told. What's your response to this? And that's the way I'm approaching that. But again, I don't. One of the things about this administration is they do a lot of things to sideline us, and I don't. Even though I want people to document those, I send them to the census and I ask them for their response, and I want to keep a record of them so that when we get the legal people involved, I can have something to substantiate it. But I still want to keep my eyes on, focus on getting this 100% in. That's so. But it's a point in. I mean, obviously, everything that they've done, the original deadline was supposed to be October 31st. So if you're going to change the deadline by 30 days, and they didn't notify us until the, I think it was the beginning or the end of July, August 1st, we got the notice that they were going to shorten the census by a month. So instead of having 3 months, that meant we only had 2 months at that point. that's that ought to be criminal in and of itself, and of course is being pursued in court. But again, so and even when you talk about what they originally tried to do was put a question about immigration status on the census, and that was rejected. And so they've done a lot of different things to, we talk about voter suppression. This is obviously census count suppression.
Yes.
And like Brother Zaid said, if they can reduce the census count, they reduce our political power. We lost. You talk about losing a congressional seat, 2010. We lost it, and Larry reminded me we had 14 congressional seats in 2000. So in 2000 we lost one, and then in 2010 we lost another one. So, and when you look at Newark, if you look at the city of Newark, Newark used to have 3 legislative districts that touched on Newark that were represented in Newark. So they had 3 senators that had part of Newark, and they had they had 6 assembly persons that had parts of Newark. And that's that's pretty strong delegation for a city. But today we're down to only 2 legislative districts. So we've lost a third of our legislative power in Trenton. So it's a big deal. I mean, I wish I had more time to just go into it, but it's a huge deal because legislative districts are not that big. One of the reasons the city of Orange doesn't have an assembly person, because remember, Orange had had an actual assembly person down in Trenton representing the city of Orange, part of I think it was the 27th legislative district. Now Orange doesn't have that seat, so we've got some serious. It has a serious impact in legislative policy. We talk about the federal dollars, but when it comes to implementing, and Zaid and my brothers and sisters at POP, they understand the dynamics of policy making. And if we had more seats at the table, we could certainly push our agenda a lot further, regardless of party.
Now, Craig, 2 things. Now, what happens if Jersey City is counted as the largest city instead of Newark, which is now the largest city? What type of implications will that bring on the city of Newark? And we're getting ready to also transition into our hip hop. And I know that, I know one hip hop artist, Cardi B, has been speaking out for the census. Have we, and Dr. Harris, anybody can answer, have we seen any benefit of that at all?
Well, it's I'm born and raised in Newark, so shoot, I want to see Newark remain the largest city. So I've been working, real hard to get that count up in Essex County and in Newark in particular. It's bragging rights, but at the end of the day, it's really a matter of the representation, the political representation and the power of the city of Newark. And that's going to be determined by Newark's numbers, not by where they are necessarily in relation to Jersey City. But it's going to be, determine the amount of representation, how much of a legislative district that Newark will command, or how much of the 2 legislative districts or 3 legislative districts that Newark will command, and how much of a congressional district. If Newark has 400, let's say Newark has 500,000 people and only 300,000 are counted, that means each congressional district has about 660,000 people. So that means if only 300,000 are counted, that means they're going to throw another 360,000 people into Newark's congressional districts or district, as opposed to if all 500,000 are counted, that means there's only going to be another 160,000 thrown into that district. So you can imagine what the difference is between having another 100,000, 130,000 thrown into Newark as opposed to another 200, let's say 10 or 260,000. It's a huge district. I mean, a huge difference in representation. So that just speaks to the tremendous impact and importance of the census.
And I guess what people need to also understand, and after the census is counted, that whatever the representation is, that if only 300 count and then another district is thrown in, that congressional member, that senator has to still represent all of those people. And 9 times out of 10, if they don't fill out the census, they'll definitely call in with a concern or issue. So yeah.
Absolutely. and just to bring it home, you know, if you only have 50% of the people in your city being counted, you know what that means? That means really you're being considered 50% of a person. All right. Equality, justice itself is based on equality. That's why we talk about equal protection under the law, because unless everybody has equal protection under the law, you can't have justice. But if you're sitting up in a city and you're only being counted for legislative purposes, for congressional purposes, as 50% of a person, you don't have equality, right? And you don't have justice. So, you know, my whole thing, I'm with Larry, I'm with Pop. No justice, no peace. So, right? So until we get to 100%, we're not having any peace. I'm not giving anybody any peace, Donna. We got to do this.
So Densu, you heard what he said, and as you have these discussions, how important this is, because with your students, and Craig too, with your students, this is really, really an important issue in terms of being counted, because on the other side, the representation, it becomes a real issue. Craig, before we transition into our next segment, we ask everybody, and we have to ask you, sir, who is your favorite hip hop artist and or group?
This is Craig's first time?
I don't know. We ask them every time they're here. They can get the question 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, this is my first time.
Okay. You gotta answer the question.
Well, you mentioned Cardi B. You know, I don't know if she's considered hip hop, but I like Cardi B. I like her.
And Rhino, you can go ahead and take it from there, sir. DJ Rhino.
All right. So, DJ Rhino, are you there? DJ Rhino, you're on.
He's showing, but we don't hear. We're not hearing.
Yeah, right. DJ Rhino, you ready? DJ Rhino's always ready.
Come on, Rhino. Come on, Rhino. Come on, ride.
And Craig, Craig, I'm scared to ask you what song of Cardi B, so we're not gonna ask that. No.
God bless your heart.
Census B song.
Yeah, exactly. I like that Census commercial she does.
The other stuff will get you in trouble.
Right. Exactly.
I think I hear DJ Rhino. Yeah.
Hey, DJ Rhino.
I'm starting to hear him. He's here. We're starting to hear him. Go ahead, Rhino.
Peace. What's good, people?
Hey, DJ, what's up, man?
Not much. Just checking in on y'all.
I don't know if you heard DJ Rhino. Our guest gave us Black Star and Cardi B were our guest selections for tonight. Okay.
Yeah,
I know Cardi B is one of Chris Randall's favorite artists. We know Chris Randall just loves Cardi B.
Oh, yeah.
Chris Randall thinks Cardi B is real hip hop. Oh, you're there. Oh, my man. Oh, man. See,
I'm just trying to keep up with Joe Biden. That's his favorite rapper.
It should be. She's gonna bring votes to the polls. It should be.
Because she do know a lot about the poll. That's facts.
Oh wow.
Everybody silent.
Mute Chris Randall, DJ Rhino. Go ahead. Mute.
How more people want from me, man?
Yo, peace, Chris. What's good?
What's going on?
Not much, man. I'm not up on Power Book, but I know Power Book 2 is out, and I know Method Man and Mary J. Blige is on there. Is anybody up on that?
I am up on it.
Yes, me too.
Have y'all watched it?
I'm a 50 Cent fan, so I'm with it.
Yeah, I watched it, and Method Man has always been one of my. I like him as an actor, and
I haven't seen it yet.
And Mary played. She played Mama. Mary was the mother, so it was good. Yeah.
It was good. How was the acting?
Always
mad critical about our rappers when we go into acting. You know what I mean? How was the acting?
Well, one thing Mary played, she played a mother, and so I think she did a good job. And Method Man is playing an attorney, but I like him as an actor, so I think they both did a good job.
Yeah, I got to get up on it because I haven't been watching it, but I heard Meth and Mary was going to be on there. I thought that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. And shout out to 50 putting people on the payroll. And you know what? And speaking of that, Lala Anthony was on the cover of Essence this month, and she spoke about her working relationship with 50 and how they're able to do a lot of different projects and how their projects are very purpose and to make sure that they bring diversity into various roles. So it was a very good article, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Definitely. Now, something I wanted to jump in on because I heard folks speaking about it earlier about Ice Cube and this contract for Black America. What are y'all thinking? My thoughts. I'll start off with. I totally agree with Cube. I totally agree with him. You know what I'm saying? And we talking about votes, man. What are we voting for? I still personally feel we have to vote this beast out of the office. And whether you down with Harris and Biden or not, I think we know what we'll be dealing with that. Donald Trump never even belonged in the White House. He never belonged in politics. That's not his game. You know what I'm saying? That he's a hustler. He's in a hustle game. Not that the political game is not a hustle also. But that wasn't Donald Trump's territory. You know what I'm saying? Biden and Harris is a different situation. And I think on a political field, something that we're more familiar with, not this craziness that Trump brought in, the political field, I think we can deal with them a little bit better. You know what I'm saying? Even on an opposition type of a side. You know what I'm saying? Knowing that, whatever Harris's background is, whatever Biden's background is, we know what we're dealing with. You know what I'm saying? And we know we're dealing with we know that we're dealing with people who are in the field. You know what I'm saying? Trump was never in anything. He was never a prosecutor. He was never vice anything. He was never any of that. You know what I'm saying? What? Even that great of a businessman. So, Trump is not the dude. So we got to get him out. But I still agree with Cube that we're not going to just vote these people in and not come with look, we got to start. For years and years and years, man, for hundreds of years, Black people have been forced to do things. We've been forced to do things in this country and in the whole globe. We've been forced to do things. Now it's time for us to force people to do something for us. So we have to force Biden and Harris to do something for us. We have to force Trump the hell out of the White House. We have to put our force behind our blackness now.
Professor Denso,
we have to put our force behind our blackness. It ain't enough to be Black anymore. We got to put our force behind it.
Professor, have your students talked about this contract with Black America and Ice Cube?
No, not much. I'm in Florida. Many students in FAMU come from South Florida in particular. So, in short, no. That hasn't been a discussion for the most part.
And look, I understand, Ice Cube's a rapper, right? He's not the what we call the traditional leader, right? But as someone brought up earlier in the show, we had Harry Belafonte. You know what I'm saying? We had artists who spoke for the cause, who came out and did something for the cause. So, we can't be mad at a Cube or Jay-Z or Beyonce or whoever, T.I., whoever. You know what I mean? Killer Mike, David Banner, all of them, man. We need all of them. We need more. Why not? Why not accept them for bring to the table?
And actually,
shutting them down. He ain't no leader. He ain't no leader. He's just. I hear too much of that, and it's like, yo, so what? If he's doing something that you ain't doing, you should just shut up and let him do it. You know what I'm saying?
I vote for Ice Cube before I vote for Kamala Harris.
Yeah, but Rhino, you know what? Rap the Vote was a platform that that was used to get parties and people in a political lane to actually listen to artists, of today. And as I think we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago when Mayor Baraka did a tremendous Rap the Vote, and I think it was when Kerry was running for president, and how he brought Wyclef and all of them to Newark. So no, it's artists have a very I know now you hear people, whether they say play basketball and shut up or just sing and shut up, but that has not been the case. And Zaid, you're an artist. Artists have always been a very relevant voice in politics. So
well, here's the point that I was making, and me and Ed were back and forth with it, is that in this particular election, in this particular setting, right? We've got some voices that are in this particular moment, in this particular lane, that are not Negroes, that have some politics. So that is helpful, and it will be helpful in bringing a segment of that base out to participate in this particular election, when ordinarily they probably would not come out. The concern was that it's an old formula that the government has been trying to use, and I'm talking about both parties, in trying to push aside genuine indigenous grassroots, organizers, aside from major discussions, right? To shirk accountability, right? And to be limiting in what they're coming to these discussions with. Thankfully, this young brother, this contract with America is not empty. Is not limiting. It has substance, right? And so the Bidens and the Harrises got to come, and they can't come empty-handed. They can't come empty-handed. So if ICE and Hughley and the brothers can get some folks to come out and can get these folks to tacitly agree to some of the substance of what we're talking about, then we needed, that's all hands on deck.
And
there's all hands on deck. We
that's what the Black Arts movement was back in the days. That's exactly what the Black Arts movement was back in the days. It spoke to the cause of what was going on.
We call it the spiritual sister of the Black Power movement. That's what we call it.
Don, I was going to put this to you because I know that you've done a lot on the Black Legislative Caucus that the Black Congressional Caucus is doing. When you look at the contract with Black America, these are really good ideas. I mean, and they're like thoughtful ideas that are put together, like from representation to federal funding of baby bonds. These are things that have been put out by other politicians. Like the baby bonds was put out by Senator Booker and Ayanna Pressley. You have other types of things like the prison reform suggestions and judicial reform suggestions, and even the Police Reform Act. We've seen these demands in activists over the years. Is there some effort to have some communication between the Congressional Black Caucus legislative agenda and what the hip hop movement is, what hip hop is representing through Ice Cube, through putting out actually very thoughtful proposals that speak to what a lot of activists have been demanding and a lot of actual politicians have been demanding?
I'm going to actually, because there is a hip hop session that's coming up, and I'm sure, because one thing this year, because the Congressional Black Caucus Legislative Conference is virtual and it's over a longer period of time, that they get to be reactive to things that happen daily over a longer period of time. So there is a hip hop segment that's coming up, and Rhino, I'll make sure I get the date to you. And these are things that we could, we have an open line with Congressman Payne, and his session will even be, and although his session is going to be on small business, all these things are relevant. So these are things that people will ask questions because people, will be online, and they'll be able to respond to. So we can make sure that this information, we can get to Congressman Payne's office and he can give it to his colleague that's doing the session at the Hip Hop Caucus. But there is a hip hop panel that is coming up that has not happened yet. And Rhino, I'll make sure you get it.
And it's interesting because this is something that is, I've heard about it. It's been on our radar. But one of the things that I consider as an oversight is just not bringing this up directly to him, and especially with some of the things. Because we talked about the Black Legislative Caucus last time, and definitely bringing things to him to that thing that I'm sure that he would support, that the Congress has supported. Like there's something about banning locals. The Congress is already doing, or at least the Democrats have already put that in the bill, and it's something that they actually want to do. So I think that there really is a lot of synergy. A lot of people, I think, are reinventing the wheel,
right?
And I think that a lot of people just need to come together and be like, "Hey, these are ideas."
And I can't hold. I mean, Common has been on a panel, and just knowing Common's platform, I can't. These are not issues that I have not been at the hip hop panel in years, just because there are conflicts when you're there. There's like 4 dynamic panels going on at one time, but I can't imagine Common being on a panel and these things not being talked about. Just knowing Common and what he talks about.
Can I say? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah. Who's that? Denzel?
Yeah. I think I'm real. In short, Ice Cube position, I don't think is an issue as much as this tendency for, how do I put it? It's what you talked about earlier. This idea, where's the synergy? And each generation kind of reinventing the wheel. And I think part of that occurs is because we exist in a political culture that I don't know, I think maybe privileges or accentuates the national dynamic. I don't know if that makes sense. So in other words, somebody's going to listen to someone who's big in the media or who's big on the national stage before they would connect to local stuff. And when that happens, you automatically eliminate the possibility of structurally and systematically creating intergenerational continuity.
Right.
That's the priority.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and go ahead.
I
guess that's the language I was trying to find, because I was thinking through it as I was listening to you or listening what people had to say. I don't know if it's as much about the substance as it is about this continuous dependence on celebrity in a national context to articulate how people should move forward and how that subverts continuity at the local level where stuff needs to be institutionalized. So to the degree that Ice Cube is connected to folk where he lives, which I'm not sure of, I would doubt, I wouldn't have as much of a criticism of it, because it's not about the content. But this tends to happen all the time.
So what you're talking about, really, like we're on bookends. When you first came on the show, we were talking to the person from Need, and he was talking about how that process is a grassroots process. The main thing they do is identify people who are leaders in the community. They bring them together and they figure out what the agenda is collectively, as in the people who are leaders, who are at meetings, who are already engaged, who are grassroots, will determine what that agenda is, and then it goes bottom up. You're saying the criticism of Ice Cube is there any evidence that this was bottom up, that it's representative of the community, even if these are good ideas? Did he just do a Google search, or did he do some research? But that research is disconnected from the actual people this affects.
Hey, look, I think
like listening to Professor Dentsu. I know he's a big Mark Anthony Neal fan, and you know he just supports people like Mark Anthony Neal.
No, why'd you say that?
I'm just being petty because I read your article. Sorry.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Like,
yeah, I'm just being petty because I read your work. I'm just being petty. I figured that would get a rise out you because I know how you actually feel. I know how you feel about his analysis of black schools and really smart. Anyway, I know that's your man and all that. Because Dr. Kelly Harris hangs out with Ben Carson, so I figured maybe.
Oh my God.
But seriously, because as you wrap up, Rhino, because Rhino actually said last week, first of all, the music is reflects what goes on anyway. The music eventually will hear the music of what's going on right now. That's what you said last week, right, Rhino?
Yeah, I said a lot of things last week. I was definitely speaking on also police brutality needs to be number one on everybody's list.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you talk about reparations, you ain't getting a check or some land if you can still get shot by the cop.
Mm.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
I think the part that's interesting though, and Professor Denzel, I'm just playing. I just read your article, so I apologize.
Go ahead. That was funny. Go ahead.
I think that the difficult part is that we don't understand inertia, and we don't understand how people like Ice Cube was dangerous in the late 80s and the early 90s because there was a super politicized hyper majority of young black people who were interested in liberatory politics. Right. I think the scary moment now,
and they push that stuff to the front to block that. That's right.
So I think that my problem and where I'm the most heartbroken, I'm talking to you, particularly Baba Zaid, where I'm the most heartbroken is in the same way that C. Dolores Tucker and people like that have very shallow criticisms of hip hop. I look at every time I see an older black person that's like in the middle of their 60s or at the end of their 50s, I'm just looking at them like, you probably one of them ones that voted for misincarceration in the 1994 crime bill to be the president of the United States. This is like I think that the generational gap is just that I think older black people have gotten so comfortable with oppression that they don't think they can't see anything different. And younger black people are becoming more and more disengaged because we got to pick between the architect of the 1994 crime bill, the top cop, or a fascist. And so,
because we're at the end of the show. Okay. DJ Rhino, wait, go ahead, Denzel. Just give me the summary of what you was gonna say. Go ahead.
I would want because one day you're gonna be older like that.
That's right. Yeah.
I think
I don't drink that.
Wait, Chris. You're gonna be old one day, bro.
No, not that. I want us at another point to rethink how we frame stuff like that, because the flip side of that argument could be just like the older people, this older leadership supported the crime bill. They could say a bunch of younger people are terrorizing the community.
Right.
So it's like we gotta fix the way we look at this lack of continuity across generations and within the community to advance.
Oh, absolutely, for sure.
I don't know if
I agree with that.
Well, wait, Chris, because we're out of time. And Rhino, do you have to go over? Are you going? Because we're after 9 o'clock, so I just want us to frame things and the camera to all of us. So we have to come back because this conversation is probably going somewhere that we need to talk to because
she frees up.
Breaking up on us.
Okay, I just want to say, as we close, remember that the older people were the people who actually died so that you can sit here and say these things very comfortably. So they're not only comfortable about being oppressed, but they took some hits. And let's come back and have a longer conversation. DJ Rhino, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do you have to go over to Periscope, sir?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, so do you want to have your closing statement as you go to Periscope?
Yeah, I just want to say peace to the people. Be safe out there. Keep your eyes open, all three. And love y'all. I'm gonna talk to y'all next week. God willing.
And how can they join you on Periscope for the after party?
Just hit periscope.com, I believe, / all politics are local.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're gonna be rocking out, and we'll look forward. What's gonna be your inspiration for Periscope tonight, sir?
Everything that we've been talking about, man. The resistance.
Okay. So please, all right. And in the bottom as the thing, yeah, you'll see that the information for Periscope is. So thank you, DJ Rhino, and
Much love.
join him over there. But next week, as we prepare to leave, Zaid, any events coming up that you want people to know?
The Hub is doing a video shoot on police brutality tomorrow at 9:00 that I'm trying to help them with. And this is one of the points that was just made, is that a bunch of young folks coming together, and they had all the national heads that said, look, we got local heads that got killed by the police, that get beaten by the police, and we got a major police reform effort right here in Newark locally that we need y'all to be engaged in and to pay attention to. So I'll be with them tomorrow morning, early in the day on Prince Street. And I want everybody to, the 19th is the 60th anniversary of Malcolm meeting Fidel. But on the 26th, I'll be hosting a webinar around one of my Panther elders, Rosemary Mill, who came out of the Philly chapter of the party, by the way, right? Who did a classic book, Memories of a Meeting, Malcolm Meets Fidel. And we'll be building a webinar around her on Saturday, September 26th at 5 p.m. So stay tuned as we shape up the details for that.
Okay, so Chris Randall and Densu, I'm going to have to bring you guys back so you can have this intergenerational conversation about the differences, the similarities, and where we can meet in the middle.
Only if he talks about his article. Only if he talks about
he's going to be ready. But would you gentlemen be interested in coming back for that, to have that conversation?
Okay. That's how I met Professor Densu. I met him on paper before I've seen him in person. It's good to see.
Okay, so we're gonna talk to Jonathan and see if we can get that arranged. But I want everybody that what we should leave here collectively talking about is in these last couple of days, making sure persons fill out their census form.
Fill out their census forms, and when them ballots come,
I'm going to
fill out properly and get them in.
And also with New Jersey, you can vote online. As of this past Monday, you can now register to vote online. In New Jersey, you can register to vote online effective this past Monday. So get registered. Don't wait until November 3rd and say, oh, I didn't know. So please
give them the deadline for this election because it's coming quick.
I believe it's October 13th. Is it October 13th, Saeed?
I'm not sure. That's why I asked you to put it out.
I believe it's October 13th, but know that you can go from your phone, whatever it is. Everybody pretty much has a phone in their hand. You can register to vote in the state of New Jersey online. And also, we've been talking about policy, how it affects the Black community. Right now, as we speak, the Congressional Black Caucus is having their annual legislative conference virtually. And if you go to the CBCF as in Frank, ALC 2020, you can register. And you should register for the sessions, watch them. And then as we come back, you can engage and we can talk about them. I know there are trials being done for the vaccine for COVID. And there's a lot of panels on should we participate in those trials. And there's a lot of information on voting and just concerns that are around our community. So please try to get on those annual legislative sessions. And they're also on YouTube. So be engaged, get involved, and get informed. Densu, did you have any announcements for us?
No. I appreciate being here, and I appreciate the discussion.
Thank you, Brandon. Do you have any
Baba Zaid, what size t-shirt you wear?
XL.
Because you said the thing I got your shirt.
Right on.
Okay,
wow, beautiful. That's a race first shirt. Right on. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. And actually, Baba Zaid, I need to talk to you because I may need your help.
Okay.
Yeah, when I told him who you was, he said, "Oh, I got he." Yeah, he's like, yeah, he got that. He got that from me. He said he got that one from the heart.
All right.
So I have the wrong size, but I'm gonna get you an XL.
Right on. Appreciate it, son. Thank
to
you.
all of our guests, I want to just say thank you for being here from the top of the hour, and then to our closing, Craig Stanley, to who was it? To Thomas Luna, to you, Dr. Densus. Thank you for staying, Dr. Harris. Thank everybody for being here, and we just look forward to being with you next Friday, same time at 6 o'clock. And go on over to Periscope and listen to DJ Rhino.
Ride.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Number one hip hop talk show in the land. We'll see you next week.